Hello, welcome to a Gamescom special, Gamescom 2023 special, Swapping Joysticks. I'm your host, Ben Ostwick, otherwise known as Biggest Bennis, and joining me, as always, do you want to introduce yourself?
It's me, Ed Nightingale of Eurogamer fame.
Fame? Wow, you give me the evils when I say that you're famous, but you are quite famous, and I think it's gone to your head a little bit, this Gamescom.
How very dare you?
How many people have come up to you and been like, oh my god, you're Ed Nightingale of Eurogamer fame and Swapping Joysticks fame?
No one said that.
Has anybody ever said, oh my god, you're Ed from Swapping Joysticks?
No.
Okay, this is the challenge to the people that listen to this. I want you to, next time you see Ed, go, oh my god, are you in Swapping Joysticks? Bonus if you've never met him before.
It might be, oh, you're the guy from the Ben Starr video.
Yeah, we've had that.
Well, but they don't know what Swapping Joysticks is.
My favorite bit is when you say, so, oh, I'm in Swapping Joysticks and stuff, and then they're like, oh no, I don't know, never heard of it. And then you go, have you seen the video of Ben Starr reading thirsty tweets? Like, oh my god, yeah. And like, yeah, we're literally in those videos for a brief second. We're not the main attraction there. But yeah, we are back from Gamescom 2023, as you can tell with our t-shirts.
Yes, we went to the merch place and bought them
before the public came in, so we can because the queues were huge.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we can get to what the public section looked like, but yeah, you went for the basic logo.
I did,
and I went for a cat.
Yeah, you went for the one that looks a little bit third party.
You know,
yes.
What do you mean third party?
Yeah, it's fine.
How very dare. It's got a cute cat on it.
I'm sure that t-shirt was bought by all the VTubers in attendance.
Great. Well, I'm going to really enjoy sleeping in it.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to enjoy wearing it, out and about. I'm going to be proud.
I got a lot of good sleeping t-shirts.
Yeah,
over the past
I've got
week.
more sleeping t-shirts now than I have actual normal t-shirts, and I'm not even joking. That is literally not a joke. I genuinely have more t-shirts. I'm like, I'm going to keep that for inside the house or for sleeping in, not one for going out in.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those of you who are just tuning in, we are. This is a game. Can't stop saying GameSpot.
Don't say that.
No, sorry.
That's definitely trademarked.
This is a GameSpot original. This is a Gamescom 2023 special. We're going to be talking a little bit like what we've been doing. We're going to be talking about all the games that we've looked at or we've been playing. This full podcast, if you're listening to it now, it's probably very delayed because there are a bunch of embargoes and they were like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we thought, okay, at the end of Thursday, once that final embargo is lifted, we'll just send it all out. But yes, we have got some of the separate chats about certain games on YouTube, which you can probably see right now.
Nice.
And then, yeah, obviously we'll finish with what you've been playing. But like it is going to be generally all about Gamescom because we've been seeing and playing a lot of games that aren't out yet, which is always a bonus.
Always fun. Yeah, we normally do a little section on the news and the headlines, but I mean, Gamescom is the news, so there's no point.
No. So, yeah, this is our first Gamescom. How did you find it?
Busy.
Oh yeah,
absolutely exhausting. And I figured it would be in the run up to it. I went for Eurogamer, and I had all of my appointments booked in advance. So the way that maybe we should just explain the difference between the public and the business side, because we were in the business side because we're cool.
Well, I was a creator. Thanks very much to Iona who got me the creator pass. I was Iona's +1. And I did see her. I only saw her once, actually. But we're going to meet up, I think, again at EGX. She's lovely.
Also, creators get in earlier than press. I'm not happy with that.
Yeah, we went to see... There was a game that was only in the public area.
Yeah.
And it was... Everybody wanted to play it. But for some reason, creators, we went extra early the second day so that we could go and play it, and I was able to get through and you weren't, and luckily the guy kind of felt sorry for you, so let you through. But
thankfully,
but creators were for some reason
gave him a wink.
Did you?
Yeah,
it looked like that. And then at about because we were allowed in at 8 and you had to go in at 9.
Mm-hmm. And the public were 10.
With the public 10.
I think
okay.
So.
Yes, actually, it was a big queue. But yeah, so we went in. But the thing is, nothing is open until 9. So you can go in at 8 and you can queue. Yeah, and I think that might be what it is.
Oh, 100%.
Because you're not going in and actually doing anything at that time.
Yeah. So Gamescom is in Cologne or Köln.
Yeah.
That's exactly how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
And they have a huge convention center.
Genuinely.
I mean, if you're in the UK and if you've been to London, you know how big the Excel is. This is about 10 Excels put together. Or maybe not 10.
Maybe not 10.
But
Maybe
like
about 6.
5.
Yeah, 5 or 6. It's huge.
Absolutely massive. And it's these absolutely huge halls with huge stands as well. Like publishers and developers, they go all out for these like giant towering stands that are kind of immersive as you like walk around them to play games.
The Xbox stand was massive.
Yeah, absolutely massive.
Yeah.
There was a Netflix one with like statues, like a Squid Game statue and a big Wednesday thing and a Stranger Things car sticking out of a wall and
yeah, I didn't recognize it.
yeah, of course not.
And the Frontier one had the
it was all Warhammer
yeah, all
themes,
Warhammer,
which was really cool.
It was, and it's quite interesting because we were talking to them and they said like how so in Germany it's quite strict to what you can show in public. So you can't show anything that's like 16 plus. It has to be.
You can show tits, but you can't show violence.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's what they said.
so yeah, so they had to make like so all the like the areas. Whenever you saw an area where people were playing games, if it was a game that was quite violent, or gory or whatever, they had to have it completely sealed off. So it was quite interesting seeing all the different publishers and developers, like all the publishers, trying to kind of make it immersive and make it cool, but also blocking a whole area off.
Yeah.
Like in Frontier, they had like a wooden fence and a throne in front of it. So, you know, in the fenced area behind, that's where people were actually playing the Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Was it like? Yeah, game. I didn't play that, but we'd love the people at Frontier. Always get on well with them.
Thanks for inviting us to your party.
That was great, yeah. What do we have? Oh,
We had free drinks and food.
yeah, that was the
Mini burgers.
mini burgers.
They were
But they
great.
weren't even mini burgers. They was like pulled pork or pulled something. It was
good.
great.
So anyway, the public area is, I think, 3 main halls. Plus there's an indie hall, which is 2 levels. There's a merch hall. There's a load of other stuff. So that all happens, which is for the public.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the other side of Gamescom. I was about to say Games Pass then. Very different.
We can't say Gamescom. It's
No,
even
but,
written on our
it's literally
t-shirts.
written on us,
yeah.
so we can't say it. The other half is essentially all the same things, but for business. So it's much smaller stands,
And they're all blocked off.
but they're all blocked off with a reception and they're appointment only. So
Yeah.
if you haven't, you basically have to have an appointment to go and play something. So for me as press, I had a packed schedule of just loads and loads and loads of meetings. Most of them half an hour, some an hour. And you know, you rock up to the stand and you go to the reception and say, "Hi, I'm Ed from Eurogamer, and I've got an appointment at 10 o'clock to see Sonic," or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
And you get ushered into a little room, and it might be you on your own, it might be you and some other people, and you get shown a game. Sometimes it's hands-on, sometimes it's hands-off.
Yeah.
And you get maybe a sort of 20-minute time demo, and then you toddle off to your next meeting. But the thing I realized is that inside most of those stands, they A, have Wi-Fi, and B, they have free food and drink.
Which is annoying because I went with Great Ormond Street, and this is my first Gamescom, so I wasn't aware, and people weren't like reaching out to me for meetings. In fact, most of my meetings I had were through being a content creator. So I had a few of those meetings, but next year, if I'm lucky enough to go again, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to reach out.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, it's like, I think the Great Ormond Street isn't part of me where I'm going to be trying to work out and trying to get some partnerships with publishers, and also, you know, if they've got, you know, access to creators so that we can use them, you know, use their contacts to help with our campaigns going forward. But I think the initial way to get a meeting with them is to use the creator side of it and be like, hey, we talk about video games on our podcast. I stream all sorts of different things. I'm a Twitch and YouTube partner. Can I see your game? And maybe I need to be a bit more proactive next time. But I did have a few meetings, but I think I could have definitely had a much more packed schedule if I'd kind of not been snowed under with work.
Yeah, I think for press, like we had, like literally I had hundreds of emails from people saying like, please come and see our game. And I'm like, I'm like, there's only like, 10 hours in a day or whatever else. So it's difficult to see everything. But I had a really, really packed schedule, and I realized you want to get to your meetings early because then you can sit and have free food and drinks.
See, I did that a couple of times and they were like, oh, you're early. And I'm like, yep.
Yes, I am. I
Give
would
me
like a free
food.
coffee, please.
Yeah.
Also, Germany does not have water fountains or free water
Or still water.
or still water.
Germany.
Honestly,
What's wrong with you?
What are you doing, Germany? Come on.
Or credit cards. They don't accept debit cards.
Yeah, a lot of things are cash only.
So many
quite
things
annoying.
cash only.
Yeah. So it can get really expensive to buy stuff, but if you're going to the business places,
Mm-hmm.
you get your freebies, which is nice. So yeah, it's like a whole other side of Gamescom basically, and it's still really busy. There's loads and loads of people there, press, creators, developers, business people, whatever. So it's still really, really, really busy, and you're rushing around going from meeting to meeting. But then you go to the public bit when it's open, which is, so Wednesday is media only for everything, and then Thursday to Sunday is the public bit. And the public areas, I don't think I've ever seen so many people in one place.
So
It's horrific.
I might do a little bit of editing, maybe, of this
Okay.
video, and I may put a couple of, while we're talking about this, I may put a video up like here or somewhere of that I took walking around there, so just so you can see how busy it is. But yeah, I did a walk around.
You've said that you have to do that now.
I have to do that. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, we're not putting this out till later in the week, so it actually gives me time.
Great.
And we're gonna milk every bit of Gamescom we can.
Of course.
But yeah, I went for a little walk around on, I think it was a time when you had like 2.5 hours of back-to-back meetings and I didn't have any. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go and walk around the public area, because there are some games there that are not in the business side, because the business side, you need to like pay for a whole booth there and I guess have like regular meetings. Whereas if you're a small indie studio or an up-and-coming indie studio or a great indie studio like Fireshine Games, who were only in the public area, oh my God, I do not know how they managed to cope there, because it was huge. There were still areas, so there were still like giant rooms, or what are they called? Rooms? Areas?
Stands?
No, like the whole, like...
Halls.
Yeah. There were whole halls that I didn't even go to.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't go and see the downstairs area of, I think, 3 or whatever it was. They were huge. And there was someone like on the final day that were like, oh, this is here. What is this? This is massive. So
yeah.
It was, yeah, but Fireshine Games were there, and they were there the entire time, like public facing. And then I just saw that Sam from Fireshine, really, really nice guy who I had a good chat with. He was on a flight back today that then, as he was on the plane, it got cancelled because of the signalling, the air traffic control problems in the UK. So,
and I thought we had a nightmare on the trains.
Yeah, which we didn't. I mean, our train was 45 minutes late, and it went from a different station in Cologne, but they didn't tell us. But because we got there so early, we were fine.
Well, we were fine. I was not fine at the time. I was shaking and panicking and stressed.
And I was just like, oh yeah, this
Yeah.
happens. This happens.
Anyway, we made it home. We are here.
Yeah.
So yeah, essentially the media days are sort of Wednesday to Friday. The public is Thursday to Sunday. So most of the media goes home, or business as well goes home sort of late Friday.
Oh,
we
God.
stuck around until Sunday, and all the public are there as well. But we didn't really go in Gamescom.
No, it was way too busy. And yeah, like my idea was on Saturday and Sunday to go and chat to some social, so talk to some influencers, see if they can, want to join our campaign for Stream It, Beat It, which will be announced right now. Actually, you'll have seen it, or at least it will be on Friday. It's in the Discord for Great Ormond Street. We're going to try and raise money in October. And yeah, but it was not creators at that time. It was just the public.
Yeah.
And yeah, good. If you went there as like a member of the public, I hope you had a great time and good luck, because my God, there were so many people there.
So many people, but also, I mean, there's a lot to see and do, but it takes forever to just walk across a hall because there's so many people. And you're also queuing for upwards of 2-3 hours to play a 20-minute demo of something. So it feels like a theme park where you're queuing for rides, but in similar times of literally 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
So if you're paying to go, I just don't know how much you even get to see,
And
because
you
there's just so much.
You didn't go to the public area where they shut off certain paths where we've walked before, and like, we've had enough room to swing a cat kind of walking around. They were so busy and it was so packed that they made you go down like a ramp. Kind of, they put an extra 500 meters onto your trip from one place to another, just because they made you go this whole outside while it was raining all the way out, like through a different entrance.
No.
Yeah. So it was, the public area. I wouldn't go if it was public, if I could only get a public ticket, which just sounds really arrogant and kind of elitist of me, but like it's not worth it for what I do.
No, I mean, I don't think it's worth. If you're a gamer and you love it, then
there were lots of kids there as well. It was
lots of kids and lots of cosplayers and want to show off their outfits and that sort of stuff. Like, great.
Just being there, surrounded by it, and just seeing all the lights and all the colors and all that, just everything going off. To a lot of people, that is amazing. It's like a theme park.
But if you're there to like see as many games as possible, you're not going to do that in the public area. Like you're just not.
If you're wanting to visit Gamescom and like just see things and not necessarily play, but just go and like soak in the atmosphere, you can easily spend 2 days and not see the same thing twice. It is that big. It is. I wasn't expecting it to be that big.
And you can go to the merch hall and buy lots of merch if you want.
Which you did.
I've been wanting the Yarn Yoshi amiibo for ages, and I finally got one. So now I have this little pink friend.
And it was cheap as well, wasn't it?
It was £10 or €10.
That's actually really good.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get it in the camera.
You can join our amiibo collection with our you can't see it over there, but we've got the Splatoon guy, we've got the 8-bit Mario, 16-bit Mario, and the Tears of the Kingdom one. So you could like stick that in there.
Stick it in there?
Stick it in the white. Well, maybe not, because you'll end up unplugging it. You should know.
No, he can sit here for now.
It makes a nice change to having a wiglet behind you. Don't. I mean, it's
that's there. You can't see it, but it's there. So
anyway,
I guess we should talk about the games that we
should talk about the games. Yes, we'll talk about Cologne later as well and what we think of Cologne. But let's get into the games. What was the first? Well, should we talk about our favorite games that we played? Also,
sure.
Let's go straight in. What was your number one game that you saw/played?
My number one game was Black Myth Wukong. So this game was announced a couple of years ago. It's by a Chinese developer called Game Science, and it is essentially a Souls-like kind of game based on Journey to the West, which is a classical Chinese novel.
Got a hole in my t-shirt already. Wow. Sorry, yeah, anyway.
I am shocked and appalled. Gamescom.
What the quality. Anyway, yeah,
terrible
sorry,
quality.
we're Black Myth Wukong.
So it was announced a couple of years ago, and we haven't seen a huge amount about it. It's just every year they have shown a new trailer with a little bit more gameplay, and it looks incredible. You're playing as this monkey with a bow staff, these incredible looking bosses, most of which are anthropomorphic animals.
I think they all were.
Like wolves and monkeys and insects and...
Is it caterpillar?
Centipede.
Tiger.
So it's always looked really, really cool in trailers. And there was a new trailer for it at Opening Night Live, which I guess we should say starts off Gamescom. So that's Tuesday night. Jeff Keighley hosts it. Opening Night Live, they show off some new games, most of which are then at Gamescom. And this was one of them. And in the run-up to Gamescom, like, no one has played this game before, apart from IGN, who got an exclusive on Monday, last week. No one else has been able to play it. We didn't know it was going to be at Gamescom, but then it was at Opening Night Live, and then it turns out at Gamescom, there was a big stall for it in the public area, but nothing in the business area. So no one had an appointment. No one was able to go and play it as a press, as press or media. And I saw it and was like, I have to play that. I've seen the trailers. I know I want to play that.
Yeah.
If there's one thing I play this weekend, it has to be that.
So you went over?
So I went over and I tried to, play the press card. This was at the end of the day on Wednesday, which was a press day or media day anyway.
Yeah, there's no public in on a Wednesday.
And I thought maybe at the end of the day, it might be a bit quieter. And so I go to the back and the queue is closed. And they're like, yeah, it's a 3-hour wait. And this is at like 5. So like, you're just not going to get in. And I tried to, flash my badge and say, look, I'm here as press. Is there, any opportunities for press? And they're like, no, it's public only. So there's nothing you can do.
There's no PR, is there?
No, exactly. I think they just brought it over for the public to play it, and that was that. So there was no way of playing it apart from to queue up with the public. And I thought, look, I'm chock full of meetings. I have no time to do this. I don't know when I'm going to get to play it. So we decided, right, this was Wednesday. So on Thursday, we decided, right, we're going to get up super early Thursday and we're just going to go straight in and just join the queue. And I had a meeting at 10 and I think the earliest I could get in was 9. The demo's half an hour. So it was like, as long as the queue isn't more than half an hour at that point, let's just do it and play it. We actually got there about 8:40 and that's when you went in first and I had to wait.
Yep. I was like, okay, fine, I'll go in. Because we were going to go even earlier, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, we had breakfast and whatever. Yep. So anyway, he let me through. We ran to the queue. They hadn't opened it yet, but there was a queue already.
Yeah, that's how
we
popular
basically
it was.
got, I think, maybe the last 2 PCs. 'Cause it was all on PC.
Yeah.
I think we got the last 2 places in PC in that first section that went round.
Yeah.
From the queue. So we got to play it and finally got to play it before anyone else. So I very quickly wrote up a preview, which you can go and read in Eurogamer.
But you don't want to. You want to hear about it here.
Of course. But also go and read that later.
Yeah.
I figured a lot of other journalists would be too busy or wouldn't want to queue. So I was like, right, I'm going to make the effort to go and play it. And I'm so glad I did. I can't stop thinking about that game. The demo was half an hour. It was 4 bosses that you just selected from a menu.
Yeah.
And you got a stamp for each one that you collected. So that's the other thing, is that people wanted to queue again to get 4 stamps, and then you got some extra merch or something. So
I think it was badges for your cap.
Yes.
Because they gave you a cap.
They gave you a cap, and then you got badges to like sew onto your cap. So it was basically just 4 bosses. That's all it was. So in terms of how much of a Souls-like is this game, we still don't really know, because in terms of exploration between bosses, you know, does it have that typical maze-like folding back on itself structure? You know, what currency do you collect? Do you lose it when you die? How do you level up? How do you customize your character? All those sorts of things that are very typical of Souls games, we still don't really know. But we do know what combat's like. We do know what the bosses are like. And it's fucking cool. So I got to see 3 of the bosses. I think you did 2.
Yes, I only saw, there were 4 and I did 2. I completed the first one. First one, which was the centipede. Abilities, giant centipede.
It's like an underground
poisonous
area, sort of skeletons and skulls, and you drop down into this arena and there's this huge pile of bones. Yeah. And when you walk up to it, this centipede kind of bursts out of it and starts chasing you.
I've noticed those 2 bosses I found, they love to do like an attack immediately. So you can immediately lose half your health within, if you're not like, you haven't got your wits about you and you're not expecting it. They don't stalk you to start with. Well, those 2 didn't. But yeah, so do you want to talk about like before going to that, do you want to talk about like the different leveling that you can do in it, like the different skill switching, which I don't think you did though, did you?
Well, that's the thing. I didn't do that because each boss, they gave you a slightly different loadout. So the way combat works, you're playing as this monkey. He has a bow staff, but there are 3 different stances, which is effectively sort of where he's holding it.
Yeah, similar to Neo.
Similar to Neo. I actually can't. Hang on. Oh no, I didn't. No, I did write them down. I made notes on my phone. Let me double check.
So yeah, you've got the 3 different stances, but you go to these shrines, and at the shrine you can rest. Obviously,
I didn't write them down. Okay. That was silly. So 3 stances. There's one that is like a sort of, he like crawls to the top of the pole and like perches on it and then slams down. Okay. There's one that's like thrusting. So I guess you're holding the pole at the bottom and sort of poking away, which I particularly enjoyed, poking bosses from a distance.
I bet.
And then there was another one that was sort of holding it in the middle, I guess, that was more of a sort of powerful attacks.
Yeah.
And you switch between the different stances, but the monkey also has magic abilities. And each boss, they gave you different magic abilities to test them out.
Yeah.
But then, as you found out, there's the shrines that, or sort of incense shrines.
Yeah.
Which is where you check, essentially like a bonfire, I presume. It's like a checkpoint, and you can change your loadout, which you did.
Yeah, I did. Did I level up? I don't think I saw a level up button option, because I'm kind of confusing it with another game that we played. But yeah, I switched out a couple of them. But some of the ones that were there were actually really good. The ones that were like default seemed to be great. However, there was one. So there seems to be like a defensive one, an attack one, and then like a super one.
As in magic abilities.
Yeah, magic abilities. So the defensive one was like a shield that if they hit you when you've got the shield activated, it kind of stuns it, which was really useful.
Was that the stone one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a really useful one, but you had to kind of you had to use it when you were about to be hit.
I'll tell you about that in a minute. Yes.
Which I guess you didn't.
No, but I know what that ability is from something else.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it's similar to one in. Well, actually, no, it's not Final Fantasy 14, but there's a few where you have to kind of use it when you're about to be hit. But yeah, you can choose, and there's some where you freeze the enemy immobilize. You freeze them in place. And then there's one where there was like a circle of fire that you put in the ground, so whenever it comes over to you, it takes damage. I believe I didn't really use that.
I didn't either. My favorite one was my two favorite ones that I actually don't think you use necessarily. There was one called Cloud Step that was like a last minute dodge, but sort of in smoke. And then it had like a follow-up attack that was really powerful. So that was like a really cool extra dodge, which was useful. And then there was one called Red Mist that transforms you into a different character. And you become this like wolf master with fire attacks.
I feel that Red Mist one is one that maybe is a permanent. I don't know. It feels like it was so powerful. It was like becoming a different thing.
Well, I think there are story reasons for it that we don't know about.
Yeah.
So I think there are various magic abilities where you transform into a different character.
Yeah.
Of which that's one of them.
And my other one, oh my God, what was I going to say? Yeah, there's another one where you could dodge, but you leave like a mirror image of yourself there, so that all the that
Decoy.
takes all the heat. Yeah, decoy, pretty much. From like in Apex Legends. So you leave the decoy because one of the reasons why I brought up this before we start talking about the centipede was that halfway through they just swarm these poisonous like little mini centipedes coming towards you, and I like on the third go I'm like, these are just annihilating me. I can't dodge them. I can't. So I went and switched to that one and thought, I wonder if I save that spell, because you don't want to be using your spells all the time because you can't.
They're on a cooldown.
They are, and some of them are on a big cooldown. And they don't reset when you like lose in a boss, or if you beat a boss or whatever. Like they're permanent. Like, it's a 2-minute, 3-minute cooldown sometimes for big ones, and they'll be there even if you die. Like the red mist thing.
I did not notice that, but okay.
Well, the red mist thing, when I died, I went and came back to the shrine, and it was still cooling down, which was a bit annoying. Especially when I had like 3 minutes left of the demo, and I'm like, damn it, I need to have that back because I can defeat it then. But yeah, so they were all swarming, and I thought, okay, I'll use the decoy. And I used the decoy and managed, and all of those enemies, plus the main centipede, all the poisonous centipedes, little ones, and the big one, just went for my decoy. And I was able to just kind of quickly dodge the ones that were moving, and then wait for them all to just kind of, have their attack spent on the decoy, and then I could go back. But the thing is, it glitched.
I just ran away.
It glitched then. But then the game glitched because that was halfway through, and then the centipede, the main one, just stood there while I attacked it and got it down to 0 health. Just literally did not damage me at all.
Yeah.
So I was quite happy with that.
Yeah. So the centipede was poisonous. It had sort of claw attacks. It also had a rolling attack, which reminded me of that like dragon boss in 16.
Oh, it reminded me of a
Final
Fantasy 14 boss where you're in the sunken temple of Kwan, and it just kind of comes straight at you and then hits the wall and then goes off in the other direction. But yeah,
sure. So yeah, you have to roll precisely basically to get out of the way of that. And I think dodging is quite a sort of key mechanic in this game. As with all Souls games, you have your stamina meter, which you use up when you dodge or when you attack. So you've got to manage that. But it felt quite generous in terms of dodging.
Yeah.
And movement. So I feel like it's a game that is very much about dodging and movement and being, I mean, you're a monkey, you want to be acrobatic.
Yeah.
It's not there to like shield, or I think there is a parry, but I didn't use it. So you're not there to shield, it's there to move and dodge and move around.
Only
bosses.
That spell that I have. You said there was it's used from somewhere else, that shield.
Well, the third boss, which I got to, which was my favorite one, was this tiger. And the tiger uses that ability. And from what I understand in the game, when you defeat the tiger, that's when you get that ability.
Oh, so these spells you might get from defeating the bosses.
Yes.
Ooh, I like that. I wonder if that's going to be like their version of leveling up. Maybe there isn't any leveling up and you just gain things from beating bosses. That could be interesting. Isn't that... Did Sekiro do similar?
No.
Maybe not like gaining that, but they didn't level up, did they?
Not quite. So the centipede was the first boss. The second one was this sort of snowy area on top of a mountain, and the boss was a monkey, with another monkey.
It was, and so one thing I love about the bosses in this, they don't feel unachievable even from the first attack, like even for the first time you face it. So I was playing, like, I'll play Dark Souls boss, and there's another, yeah, well, actually, no, it was a different thing. But I was playing, whenever I play Dark Souls boss or an Elder Ring boss, something like the first time, I might get it down to, if I'm lucky, like 3/4 of its health is left. Sometimes it's like I get like 2 hits before it's murdered me, and I'm like, okay, I need to learn these patterns.
Yeah.
Whereas that, it felt a little bit more generous. Like both bosses that I faced, the first time I faced them, I got them down to half health easily, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is achievable. And yeah, the first boss, I know it glitched halfway through when I faced it, but that was like the 3rd or the 4th try. And then the monkey boss, I was trying so many different things each time. And the 3rd time I faced, so the first time I actually got it to really low. Second time I got it to like 1 hit away. And also I wasn't quite sure of the phase, like the other monkey phase that it turns into, because I didn't realize that when you die as that, monkey phase, it reverts you just straight back to your original. Whereas I thought, I'm like, oh, if I die as this monkey, is that me dead? So I was like,
what monkey? What?
Well, you become the red mist. We'll call it red mist.
It's a wolf.
What?
The red mist.
Do you become a wolf?
You become a wolf.
I can't remember. It was very early in the morning.
Yes.
So as the wolf, I didn't realize that when my health goes to 0 as a wolf, you revert back to the monkey. So my health was going really far down. So I was looking for a moment to kind of pause and like force it to reset back to the monkey. And yeah, I ended up dying. But if I'd realized, I'd have beaten that. But the 3rd time I faced it, I destroyed it. Like I was melting it with all the attacks because I had everything ready. All of my cooldowns were there. And yeah, I pretty much melted it. And then all of a sudden it just disappeared. And then went off to a different area in the temple, like a more central area, where I had like a phase 2 and it had gained back to 50% health and was really, really aggressive and...
Secret second phase.
Exactly, I was about to say, because you didn't have that.
Well, no, I took my time.
Chipping away.
Yeah, just poking away.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, that thrust move, I think, was the best stance, because when it's poised to attack you, you just thrust and it goes meh, and falls back on the ground. You can get a couple more hits in. So it's this monkey, and like just the way that it moved and you moved, the snow is dynamically moving around you and being thrown up, and it's got these ice attacks. And I forgot about magic until like 2/3 down, and then was like, oh, I used the red mist. Then was like, oh wait, fire against snow. Of course, that's going to go well, and ended up killing it quite easily that time. But yeah, it was a really, really cool boss.
Interesting seeing that, like, yeah, if you melt the boss, if you are too strong, it will like activate a second phase.
Yeah,
I thought that was really. Has
also,
that happened before in others?
Not that I can think of, but I think that's a nice way of maintaining the challenge of this game. I mean, you've said that like they felt achievable. I think you and I generally, like, I mean, I've maybe played more Souls games than you.
I am terrible at games. You are very good at games.
No, that's not what I mean. But we both play a lot of games. We've both played Souls games. For me, it felt like it was just a nice level of challenge. It wasn't like, wow, these are impossible, but it wasn't easy. I felt like these were achievable bosses that with a few goes, you could absolutely do it. And they were fun to try.
If I'm saying they're achievable, then they are achievable.
Yeah. So...
But I wonder how many of the bosses there are, because if they're only like 2 or 3 tries each time, does that mean there are like 50 of them? Who knows? Like,
well, who knows?
They smaller bosses? Are there going to be some massive, massive ones that, take a long time, and these are just kind of minor sub-bosses? Probably.
I think these are probably quite fairly major, because they were named. So they're not mini bosses; they're named bosses, and they might be more difficult in the final game. The loadout they give you, like I said, I had that stone skin spell, but you technically won't get that until you've defeated the tiger.
Yeah,
so they probably gave you a loadout from later in the game to make it easier.
Yeah, so maybe actually, maybe we do play it and it's like, oh, this is really difficult.
So that was the first 2 bosses. The third one was then this tiger, and it was in the Crouching Tiger Temple, and you climb up these steps and into this temple, and there's dead bodies and blood everywhere, and then you enter, and the tiger is kind of poised in front of this pool of what you think is water, and then you realize no, it's a pool of blood, and it's like lapping away like a cat at this pool of blood. And just honestly, so it's made in Unreal Engine 5, which is the latest Unreal Engine. So graphically as well, this game looks incredible. And just the fur texture on this tiger and the way the blood was dripping off it, which sounds gross, but just the detail on it was incredible. And the tiger sort of mocks you for being a monkey. and then you battle in this pool of blood. And again, the water is moving dynamically as you're circling each other, and it's so fluid and acrobatic and smooth, and the controls are really responsive. Like, it feels so good to play this game. The combat is amazing. It looks incredible. And like I said, it's the Chinese developer. It's based on a Chinese novel, so it feels very sort of Chinese fantasy folklore, wuxia kind of vibes. Like, it's just so fucking cool. And hearing about your experience playing it and the way that you changed the loadout, I'm now like, oh, what if I'd use that spell? And I'm still thinking about it and still thinking I want to do these bosses.
I want the demo to come out.
These bosses are so dramatic as well. Just the build up to them. It's not just, here's a in a Dark Souls game, you can see here's a massive arena. Okay, there's going to be a boss. Fine, it's kind of a bit obvious. This felt like there was a really nice setup, and it felt really dramatic, and I really enjoyed that. It was just so intense. There was then a fourth boss that neither of us got to.
But apparently was...
Well, I heard that one was easier, but it said underneath that the length of that was longer, because I think there was slightly more of the level before it, so we wouldn't have had time to play it. But I am desperate to play more of this game. We'll get onto it. We've played some other Souls-likes over Gamescom. Yeah. But for me, Black Myth Wukong was the best Souls-like I played, and it's the best game that I played. I think it's out next year, so it's still a way off, but I cannot wait to play more of it.
Yeah, same. And yeah, it feels like one that I would actually really get into. Whereas Dark Souls games, I've kind of dropped off a little bit. Elden Ring was definitely the most approachable for me. I don't know, but then now I've put it down for a while. I don't think I'd be able to get back into it. We'll see. This one, very, very, it didn't take long for me to kind of pick up the controls.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, yeah, that was Black Myth Wukong and is out next year.
At some point. I'm not even sure what console. I mean, we played it on PC, so we'll find out soon.
Who knows?
What was your favourite game, Ben?
My favourite game was, and it was one that I didn't play, the Plucky Squire. And I thought I'd written notes, but realised I just sent you a 6-minute voice clip. You know what I think of it. I've kind of forgotten what I think of it, so you're going to have to interview me about this.
Okay, so who's it by?
I don't want quiz questions. I want
great.
Opinions.
When is it out?
It was Devolver.
It's published by Devolver.
I think we both loved Plucky Squire ever since we saw it. I mean, I remember staying up for the Devolver Digital Showcase a couple of years ago. It was like around E3 time, and they showed Plucky Squire and Cult of the Lamb, and I was like, this is worth staying up to 3 a.m. for. This is pretty awesome. These look great.
Are a great publisher.
They are. They're really just fun. They do interesting indie games, but kind of make them stand out properly. I
will say I can't remember the name of the developer, but I believe it's a guy who used to work for Pokemon.
Ooh.
So that's why the design of this game is like the sort of cartoon design is like it is, because he used to work on Pokemon. Yeah,
it is. The developer is All Possible Futures.
Yeah, it's a new developer.
Which was founded by James Turner and Jonathan Bibble. And James Turner, was a designer for Pokemon and directed the art for the game Pokemon Sword and Shield.
There you go.
But yeah, let me just quickly type, because I need to get the name of the person that showed me it, because I was having a great little time. Well, this is embarrassing. It was James Turner who was sat there.
Wow.
Giving me the walkthrough.
Wow. And you didn't know who he was?
No, but I was like, he knew, he spoke so well. When you know someone is like, that person is incredibly knowledgeable and excellent at what they do. Every word he said was really interesting. And it was just, Plucky Squire, I think we've said before, we're looking forward to that game. We think it looks incredible.
I'm jealous that you've seen it.
It's like 3 times as good as what you might expect.
So give me the basic rundown. What kind of game is it? What does it look like? How does it play?
So you start off as like your Plucky Squire. You are this character in a book, but then you become sentient and aware that you are actually just a person in a book. You're just a character in a book, and you've got your companions with you. And one of the first things that we saw in the demo was one of your companions being like, "Oh, guess I'm a side character. Guess I'm not the main character." And I thought it'd be a lot cooler. And one of the first things that was shown in this demo, which is, I don't think it's been shown. Well, I asked if it's been shown in a trailer, and he said it had, but so briefly, I don't think anybody had picked up on it. One of the things you can do, one of the puzzles in the game, is that you can remove words from the book and move them around to get through. So for one instance, you need to get past this giant frog, and it goes, "Oh, alas, there was a giant frog in the way," and you can knock it, and the word "giant" comes away, or "huge," I think it was. So then you go and find other words in this book, because it's at this point it's 2D, and you're like playing literally in a book,
like top-down adventure.
Yeah, Zelda-esque. In that case, in that part it is. And then you can find the word. There are two words that would fit in there. One of them is tiny, which is the correct one, and the other one was deflated or drained, because it was like the swamp had been drained, or the sink had been drained. And you could put drained in there, and it changes the frog to just like this kind of deflated bouncy castle. You still can't get past it, but they've added that just because it's funny. Yeah, because it's funny. And then you change it to tiny, and you can get past. But it's got such great humor. There was one character in it. I can't remember exactly who it was, but like only speaks in rhyme. And yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh, it's annoying because I wish I'd written down all the notes, but I didn't have my notes with me because I was just engrossed by it. But there were just so many different tiny things in that. Like that game doesn't tend to stick with one style for more than 5 minutes. It'll then just go into something different. So you mentioned, there's a Zelda part pretty much where you're going in, you're there with your knife, or whether with your sword, attacking things that are coming towards you, and you need to activate switches to go to certain areas. But because it takes place in a book, and literally you are looking at it from the point of reading a book, there are certain areas in these levels that you can pop out of the book. And there's quite a few areas. It's not... I thought it might be very strict, or they might have certain levels or parts of this level where you're entirely in a book, and then there's some parts where you're out of the book. No, like you can go in and out of this multiple times. So yeah, you can be in your level and you can pop out of that book. You can then go below the book, turn the pages, and then pop back in if you need something from a previous page. It is so clever like that. And yeah, just like there's so many different types of combat. There was a fish grabbing game where you needed to get a
fish grabbing.
You had like a little claw, like your hand that was like a bit like a Lego hand, and like fish. You needed to catch, I think it was 3 fish, and the fish were like flying over, and you needed to click it and grab it in time. There was like a 2D platforming bit where you had to kind of jump on these enemies while kind of making sure you didn't fall off it. One of my favorite bits was you needed a bow. For a bow and arrow, but you didn't have a bow, so you had to go and find one. But you had to get out of the book. You then wandered around. This might be a little bit of a spoiler but I mean the game has got all these. There's 100.
So hang on, when you say you get out of the book,
you pop yourself out of the book because there are certain kind of what would we call them? Just like little graphics. Yeah, exactly, like little portals in the ground.
And is that where it becomes 3D?
Yeah, and then it becomes 3D. You pop out of the book, but then you can also... So obviously you pop out of the book and you think, oh, the book is the only thing that you're going to be 2D in. But no, you can be 2D in other things in this boy's bedroom. And I asked, and there is no... Well, so you can then... There might be a kid's drawing in there that's just like on the side. Or it might be a kid's drawing that the kid's drawn a castle or something and has a picture of it. You can then go into that. So I got my way to like the top of this bedroom or the top of this desk by literally just platforming, jumping around and in 3D. And then the bow was in a like Magic the Gathering-esque card, but there was this elf woman who had a big bow, really glamorous, kind of Magic the Gathering-esque style, completely different style to a cartoon. Very kind of like the AI generated. It wasn't. But that kind of art.
Yeah.
But she's in this like Magic the Gathering-esque card. And then you need to battle her in it wasn't in like a Pokemon / D&D-esque match.
Okay.
So you've got a picture of her, but it's like you are there and then she is there in front of you, like in a typical Pokemon battle. But like the text along the bottom narrates what is happening, like in a Dungeons and Dragons or TTRPG. So, and there's a lot of talk or battle. It's like fight or talk, which also reminds me of what's it called? The Undertale. Yeah, so there was like quite a lot of Undertale, and you find, well, I think the person playing it, they battled them down to quite low health, and then we spoke, and she's like, "Oh no, you're an enemy of my enemy is my friend," etc. So we were going to help that, but I wish I could remember more of it, and I've asked for B-roll, so hopefully by the time, well, actually, I think this will probably go up today or tomorrow, which is, we're recording this on the Monday, so I don't know if I will have the B-roll ready. I might wait until tomorrow, just in case. But there are just so many different kind of styles, yet they all work together because it's all set in the world of this boy's bedroom. And I asked, like, is there a story with the boy? Like, the boy whose bedroom you're in? And he's like, no. It's, well, there is, but it's one that you discover. Like, you just discover it by going around. It's not a literal, it's like, we're not, it's like I didn't create a human, we didn't put a human being in this, in this thing. You're just running around. I did ask as well how long it would be. And he said 5 to 7 hours.
Perfect.
Which is, yes.
That's a lovely afternoon of play.
He didn't, I don't want to say he said it is 5 to 7 hours, but he's like, we're still working on it.
Yeah.
So they don't know how long, but I think that was their target, or it's, under 10 hours.
Yeah.
Is what I got from it. So a couple of evenings. And he was like, yes. So that, I don't know if that would appeal to people more, the fact that it's quite short like that, but also because it changes. He said he doesn't want it to just, they don't want to create filler for it. So being able to have it like that, you can kind of, I got the impression that they can keep things fresh quite often.
It's concise.
Yeah.
And that's how games should be. I don't need collectathons and
there's
a
not
load
that.
of padding. Like, just give me good ideas, interesting puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like it is pretty Zelda-esque, but yeah, I love that you can pop out of the 2D world and become outside of the book in a 3D world.
And then you can go into 2D on other things. Like, there was a castle that you entered. I think the kid, if I can remember rightly, the kid had created some kind of like cardboard castle, and you went into that cardboard castle, and you could kind of walk around the walls on the outside, like as in Mario Odyssey.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was just and it was so beautiful as well. It seemed quite tricky. I did ask about the difficulty. Apparently, there's going to be a story mode and an adventure mode. They were playing in adventure mode, and yeah, the poor girl who was doing it was dying a few times because I think it was, well, I mean, she was having 3 people watching her.
I mean,
which definitely doesn't help.
Awkward.
But and I'm guessing they haven't kind of fine-tuned the difficulty as well.
They will do.
It was just a really exciting game. It's one that I'm dying to play. I think I'd be like, do I want to save this for like over a couple of days and really enjoy it? Or will I be like, no, I can't stop playing this. I need to play this for the entire time until I finish it.
I will play that in one go and just go through it. To be honest, I love that. Excuse me, especially this year when there's like Baldur's Gate and
yes,
and Tears of the Kingdom and all these other games that are like hundreds of hours long, to just enjoy a game for an afternoon and be done with it and be like, that was a great experience. I'm totally fine with that.
And it's got great humor. I love all the characters are voice acted, and yeah, it's just a really cute game. And I'm sure there's gonna be stuff that I've forgotten about that I mentioned in your voice message. Are there any things that you remember?
I don't remember your voice message.
Wow.
I enjoyed listening to it at the time.
Yeah.
And thought, yeah, I'm really jealous that you saw that and I really want to see it myself. But I don't remember what you said. I think you've explained everything.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, even just from the trailers, I am super excited to play that game.
Yeah. And I think the biggest takeaway from me was it's not one mechanic all the way through.
Yeah.
It's not two mechanics. It's not just going into you're either in a book or you're out of it doing platforming. No, it plays on everyone's childhood kind of.
Yeah.
With all the styles.
Like every page of the book is something different.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what they said, that they didn't want, and that's one of their things. And one thing they did say was like, how do we create scale in this? Like because they kind of consigned to a book.
Mm-hmm.
So how do they make it so that like the book is always going to be the same size? And it's like, we just make it smaller. So you turn the page and maybe it's suddenly zoomed out, and therefore you're able to go into a much larger place. So like every turn of the page is a different perspective.
Yeah.
And I just love the fact that, because she did that. I don't think they told us they were about to do it. So we were just like, what? Because it was me and a guy, I don't know where they were from, but that were just talking with the developer, and yeah, she was just talking, moving it around, and popped out the book, turned the pages, went back into another one, got what they needed, popped back out, went back, and I'm like, sorry, what just happened then? Like this 2D little Zelda character suddenly just leapt out of a book, turned the actual book itself to go and collect what it needed to do. Yeah, it's fantastic, and you will get your Zelda itch scratched, because there was definitely a lot
I have
of like
a very big Zelda itch.
this
So
will scratch it for the evening or two that you play it.
great. Perfect.
And the music was fantastic as well, of course. So yeah, that was
Nice.
the Plucky Squire, out also next year. It's been delayed, unfortunately.
And that's coming to, isn't it coming to Switch and the consoles?
I think it was coming to all of them, I
Yeah.
believe. Yeah.
and PC.
Because I asked, and then he read them all out and was like, oh yeah, all of them.
It sounds like it could be next year's Tunic,
Yeah.
like the big indie game that blows up.
Yeah, although I feel like Tunic might have appeared out of nowhere, whereas this, I think people are...
No. Tunic was
Were
a long time coming. Yeah.
I think maybe I just didn't care about it.
Well, that says more about you than anything else, I think.
It does. Okay, let's go and talk about something that we also both played
Mhm.
that I think is more your thing, but I also actually enjoyed playing it. Lords of the Fallen.
Hey, another Souls-like.
Another Souls. Like, it genuinely was. Like I felt a bit guilty because I was talking with him and I kept referring to it as Souls-like, and I'm like, maybe they're wanting a different identity, but then I'm looking at it and playing it, being like, this is Dark Souls.
I think they know.
Yeah.
Well, look, let's tick off two Souls-likes, because we both played Lords of the Fallen, and then afterwards I also played Lies of P.
Well,
So I can
yes.
tell you a bit about that as well.
Okay, Gus. Yeah, this embargo is a little bit later for Lords of the Fallen. But we can put both together. Yeah.
So Lords of the Fallen originally came out a few years ago, and this is kind of a remake, but it's more of a reboot.
Yeah.
It's the same name, same kinds of ideas, but as a brand new game. I didn't play the original. I actually have it. I think it was PS3
Oh, wow, so that's been a while.
or Xbox 360, or maybe it was PS4. Actually, I can't quite remember.
I thought PS4,
but
but
it was a PS Plus game, so I have it somewhere, and I just didn't get around to playing it.
Oh, it came out in 2014, so that's PS4, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been around for a while. I don't think it's sold amazingly well. So now they are rebooting it as a new game, but similar sorts of ideas.
It's also on iOS and Android.
There you go.
Wow.
It is
The
a
original.
Souls-like game, and it is literally Dark Souls, basically. It is dark, twisted fantasy. It's taking all of the typical Dark Souls-y kind of gameplay and just doing it with a new name. And in some ways, that makes it incredibly derivative. On the other hand, it's still really good at what it does, and I still think it's really fun. It's really playable. And it does have some of its own new ideas as well, which I guess we'll get to. But it's a Souls game. The controls are immediately familiar. The world feels familiar. It's that twisted, dark kind of vision, nightmarish. You've got your different classes you choose from.
Yeah, what do you think to the different classes? Because you can choose them, and then it changes your entire character, like your silhouette, your size. Like it becomes something completely different.
Well, there's a whole character creator as well.
Yeah.
I just went for the basic soldier melee kind of class.
That's what they recommended for me as well.
Yeah, because it's just easier to get into. So sword and shield, and yeah, basically what we played was the beginning of the game. So there was it was the training area. There was a lot of explanation.
Did you understand all the explanation in the tutorials?
I mean, a lot of it just kind of was obvious and made sense to me as a Souls player. There was some other stuff that was more complicated that we can explain in a minute, but it's basic Souls stuff really. You collect currency from enemies that you kill. You use that to level up in each of the individual stats. You've got a bonfire equivalent. You've got bosses
Leveling
that
up.
are tricky.
Yeah, you level up your strength or your stamina, and then it affects certain stats. Did you level up?
Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
I just didn't know. Yeah.
And yeah, it feels immediately very, very Soulsy.
Yeah.
The extra twist is that there's another world, which is kind of this I guess, sort of world of the dead, I want to say. I don't know exactly what it is. The umbral world, I think it is. And you have a lantern that you can use to shine over the world, and it will show you what is in the mirror world. So it might be that maybe there's a big chasm that you can't cross, and then you shine your light and you can see other platforms or another way. So you can then travel to the other world in order to traverse the environment. But if you stay there for too long,
this is what I found out.
other weird things start to happen and other enemies come up and
So
things happen.
I stayed in the other world for a bit too long because I wasn't quite sure how to get out of it, because you can only get out of it at certain areas or at certain points, and I wasn't really. It was confusing me a little bit, some of the controls and that, and I didn't get to the point, or I think I was really close to the point. I think I was actually at the point where you do change, but I wasn't quite sure of the button or what, because there are various buttons when it comes to, or various controls when it comes to, dealing with that part of the world. And yeah, all of a sudden something just appeared out of the ground and started attacking me, and I did literally like no damage to it whatsoever. Managed to dodge it a fair bit, but then it hit me once, immediately dead. I'm like, oh, it just felt a bit like The Butcher, kind of.
Yeah.
And apparently that was just when you're in there too long, because I spoke to one of the devs, I think it was the art director, and I was like, oh, what was that thing there, that red thing that popped up? And he was like, how long were you in the in the umbral realm or whatever it's called? Yeah. I'm like, oh, I think I was in there for a bit too long. Yeah. so that's quite interesting. But apparently, like, it is beatable, and if you beat it, you get amazing loot. They said.
Oh, of course. Yeah. So yeah, it's a challenging Souls game in itself, but for me, the challenge comes from navigating this dual world and sort of understanding your way around it. And I think that, as you said earlier, is what I don't think it explains that well how to traverse between them and what you get from each. It wasn't super clear.
I played it for like 45 minutes, and I think I needed quite a bit more time to kind of get to grasp with what it was, because there was bits where you found bodies you like pulled things out of.
Yeah, so you can use the lantern to basically attach to the souls of enemies. Sorry, there's a fly next to me. And you can then like yank the soul from people and like attack the soul, which then does more damage to them. So you can use the lantern in both realms to do different things, which feels quite complicated. I think it's maybe the developer thinking we need to add some complexity to this to differentiate ourselves from Souls, because otherwise it works very, very similarly to a Souls game. It's got a sort of looping environment, and you unlock shortcuts as you go.
Oh, I didn't go to any shortcuts.
Yeah, so it sort of does that, and then eventually I could see this archway leading to a big arena, and I was like, oh, I think there's a boss there.
And how was your time with the boss? Because I beat the training boss.
Yeah, did that too. And then you die on another one, which you're meant to. It's fine. So yeah, there was a German guy next to me who I think must have been a sort of influencer, and he had his friends filming him playing it. And I think he must have got to the boss quicker than me, because I could hear him shouting like, Maladia, Maladia. And I was like, oh, okay. As in from Elden Ring. So I think he was struggling with the boss a bit. So eventually I saw this arena, was like, okay, cool. We've got a boss coming. So we go in, and it's this sort of female soldier with a massive spear sort of swiping away at you. And I was like, okay, dodging behind, stab, not too difficult, a nice level of challenge. Halfway through, she transforms. Huge wings, she's flying around, like arrows falling down, like huge light-based attacks, all this stuff. So I died. Sadly. Went back to the checkpoint, your bonfire equivalent.
How far is it from the...
Not far.
Okay, good.
It was literally around the corner.
Good.
And outside there was the equivalent of summons. So in the Souls games, you can summon NPCs to come and help you. And this, again, has the same thing. So I summoned a guy to come in and help. He died during the first phase, which I'd got through already. I was like, great, thanks for your help, mate. But it helped me a little bit, I guess, just to get through it quicker. She transforms, and I managed to get her down to literally one hit, and she killed me. And I was like, no, and kind of put the controller down. However, when you die in this game, when you're in the real world, it takes you to the Umbral world. And you can then continue in the Umbral world. And if you kill the boss, it takes you back to the normal world.
Yeah.
And I realized the first time I did the boss, I was still in the Umbral world because I'd been in, like you, I got lost and didn't know how to get out. So I was in it. So I basically died straight away. But had I got to her and the second time in the normal world, when I died, I then could continue, but in the Umbral world instead. So I could then literally just run up and quickly stab her and kill her. So I managed to do it.
And what did they say?
Oh, no, they just said, well done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it was Liza P, wasn't it? Where,
That's what I was getting to. So I managed to defeat the boss. I was like, do you know what? I've got another meeting in a minute, so I need to head. So I ended it at that point. But it was great fun. Great fun. Like I said, it feels like a Souls game.
Yeah.
That is, I guess, a blessing and a curse in that it feels familiar. It feels comforting as a Souls fan. This is something you can just drop into. You know exactly what you're going to get. You know exactly what the controls are. And you can just jump in and enjoy it. And that's great. I don't think it, like the extra Umbral world thing adds complexity. I don't know if that's quite enough for it to stand out and seem like an original game, but it's still really fun to play.
It really is. And it looks gorgeous as well. Yeah, you said it's Unreal Engine.
That is also Unreal Engine, yeah. So to me, so it kind of looks to me like how Elden Ring should have looked.
Was it? Oh, I'm trying to think. Was it Lords of the Fallen where they were talking about they were using certain things from the Matrix? Did they bring that up with you?
I have no idea.
You know the Matrix demo, Unreal Engine 5?
Yep.
I'm not going to say any more because it might not be Lords of the Fallen, but there was a game that used UE5 that you... No, it wasn't. It wasn't them. It was something else. It was... Bulwark, Falconeer Chronicles that used the Matrix stuff.
Interesting.
But yeah, so that was
Lords of the Fallen.
Lords of the Fallen. But let's tie it up with your Liza P.
Yes. So just to tick off the last remaining Souls-like, because look, I like a Souls game, all right?
Yeah,
and I just happen to have seen 3 of them.
You are a glutton for punishment, and you get very, very angry. And I'm so glad that you're currently playing Sea of Stars right now, which sounds like a much calmer game.
Well, Armored Core is to come, so
yeah, I wish you had the physical one so I could hide it. I can literally hide it and allow it when I'm out. Can you do that? Can you just only play Armored Core when I'm out the house?
No, I'll play it whenever I damn well feel like it.
Damn it, I'm going to.
So Liza P. I got to play it. Now, I already played the demo that came out a couple of months ago, which they released to the public. So I think quite a lot of people have played it. And I think a lot of people bounced off it because Liza P is Pinocchio. Yeah. And it's this Belle Epoque era fantasy kind of Victorian style city. And you're playing as Pinocchio. It has a very Bloodborne-y feel and look to it, which makes it feel like it's like Lords of the Fallen is to Dark Souls. Liza P kind of is to Bloodborne, but it's actually not really. Like, it looks a bit Bloodborne-y.
And Black Myth is to Sekiro?
To me, Black Myth feels the most original.
Yeah.
If I'm honest. Liza P, it looks more Bloodborne-y, but actually I think look, you can dodge, but you can also parry in Liza P. I don't think the parry is very satisfying, but I think that's the way they want you to play it, because you can parry all of the bosses and then stun them, and that basically is how you get through all the bosses.
Okay.
And one of the things from the demo a lot of people found is that the dodge is not very good. It just doesn't feel very responsive. It's not quick enough. It just didn't feel good to play. And I was using the dodge a lot and also felt that, and then thought, right, I'm going to start parrying instead, and realized, okay, actually, I think the parry is what they want you to do. But a lot of people complained about the dodge. And I think because of that, it's maybe put people off. They, from feedback from the demo, have now changed the dodge. The dodge works as it should.
Good.
So
Breaking news.
Got to play the a new demo, a different part of the game. The first bit was just in the city. So I played that for a little bit, and already I could feel that the dodge was different. I then jumped to a different save file in the demo, which was in an opera house. It felt very grand and opulent and was really cool. And the PR said to me, look, just run through it quickly. You can dodge all the enemies, just run through it in order to get to the boss and unlock a shortcut, which is what I did and got to the boss, which was this in the stage area of the opera house, and there were some puppets on the stage, and then this hulking great beast of a robotic puppet, who I think was called the Puppet King, kind of dropped down, and then it was a boss fight, which was really cool.
Was that the person we met? The voice actor?
No.
Okay.
No, different.
We met the voice actor of a boss in Liza P.
Yes, but that was the donkey-headed guy.
Oh, that was right. Yeah, Donkey Man.
Which is from the demo, which is much earlier in the game. What I played is a lot later in the game.
Gotcha.
So they'd unlocked loads of different weapons I could try out to see what they were like. So lots of different swords and great swords, which were a bit slow, so I stuck with the normal swords. So it's me against this boss, and I immediately felt that like the dodge felt better. Good. So it felt so much smoother. It felt a lot more responsive, which was great. I think maybe the second try of this boss, I managed to defeat it.
Nice. Did you confirm that you did say you confirmed with the guy that they'd fixed the dodge?
I had an interview, and yes, I checked that. I have a quote.
On Eurogamer.
Yes, it will be on Eurogamer by now. So it was me against the boss, and yeah, for me, as I said, actually standing still and learning to dodge and parry, not dodge the attacks, actually is a much more effective strategy. Now, in that sense, in some ways, I'm slightly disappointed by the boss, because that's how I got through the bosses in the demo. And this is a lot later on, a different boss, and I kind of just used the same strategy of stand beneath it, parry, and stab it in the balls, basically. Because you're tiny and just between its legs, and I'm like, oh, I'll just stab you here.
Just like in real life?
Exactly. But it was very effective, and it worked. And I got through the boss, and I was like, yes, I did it. Because there was a guy next to me who was really struggling, and he literally stopped to put his controller down to watch me play it next to him.
Work out how to do it.
Yeah. And then it turns out that wasn't the end of the boss, because the puppet opens, and inside is someone else that you then have to defeat, who's obviously incredibly hard. And I got it down a bit of health, but I was struggling by that point because I'd used a lot of my health potions. Yeah. So I struggled. But the director then came up behind me, tapped me on the shoulder, from Korea. And in English, his best English, bless him, was literally like, you're really good at this. And I was like, me? And he was like, you've got a really good strategy. Like, your strategy is right. No one else is playing it like you, which I think, because everyone else is trying to dodge the attacks. And I was like, no, parry them to get the right timing. And I said to him, look, I played the demo, and so I kind of got the gist of it, and I understood that parrying was right. And he was like, oh, yeah, good strategy. And then basically I turned around, and I think most of the team were watching me play it to see if I could get through this boss. And I managed to do it another time, but then didn't get through the second phase. So I didn't quite fully finish it, which was annoying. But yeah, that was really fun. So,
and actually, it was interesting because I was talking to the developers at Lords of the Fallen, and I was doing, and I think I'd done some parrying because I'd worked out the smaller enemies are quite easy to parry, and I was doing it. I did like every enemy I faced, I ended up parrying because there's this area where there's like 4 of them, and I'm like, I'm just gonna practice my parry with these ones. And one of the guys behind James, who I know, he was saying like, oh great, it's great to see you parry, no one else is doing it. Like no one else has been playing it. And I asked you, and you were like, nope, didn't parry.
I didn't. I tried to parry in Lords of the Fallen, and I really struggled.
It's very specific, it's very precise, but it's also I think it's a lot easier on the smaller enemies.
Probably. Yeah. So your 3 Souls-likes, basically, you've got Lords of the Fallen, which is Dark Souls. If you like Dark Souls, you're going to feel absolutely at home there. It's a really fun game, but is very much within that style. You've got Liza P, that I think combat-wise is maybe slightly different. I don't think it feels quite as satisfying, but I do think that overall it has a slightly different style. The fact you're playing as Pinocchio the puppet, all of the enemies are mechanical puppet beasts, creatures, creations.
Yeah.
The way you level up, you have your P organs. Don't laugh. Which you can swap in and out. So everything feels very mechanical. So it has a very specific theme that everything's tied to, and I like that. Even if combat doesn't, it's better than the demo, but it's not quite as satisfying as it could be.
Yeah.
And then Black Myth Wukong, that is this Chinese folklore, fairy tale fantasy, with incredible combat and a really, really cool sense of style. I just don't know how it plays outside of the bosses, but the bosses itself and combat is fucking brilliant.
Excellent. Brilliant. Well, you've been treated. You've been fed.
I have been. I ate.
No, that's different. No. Okay, so
Right. Well,
wait, no, there's one more.
Oh, there's more.
So before we go on to like the quick in a bit we're gonna go through like all the other games quite quickly, but there is one that I got to play. So I got an email from this PR company. They were like, "Hey, we've got a bunch of games. Are you free at any of these times?" And I was like, "Well, I think I replied quite late, so there was only one available. Codename Biscuits. It was. I was like, okay, this is interesting. Signed up for it. I was like, yep, cool, that'll be great. I'll see what it is. It might be interesting." And yeah, they just said, oh, it's a game by these two developers, and I googled them and I couldn't find them. I think there was a couple of things on like itch or itch.io, and it turned out to be the game that was revealed at opening night live that I lost my shit about. Thank goodness you're here, which is a cartoony looking kind of comedy Yorkshire game. And it is a fully Yorkshire game. The two people are friends that met. They're both from Barnsley in South Yorkshire.
Where you were born.
Which is where I was born. So I was like, when they appeared and I started speaking to one, because I knew it was the same public, well, after seeing it in opening night live, I knew it was the same PR company, and I was like, that guy's got a Yorkshire accent. I wonder. So I said to him, I said,
are you from Yorkshire?
No.
No?
Okay. And so I was like, oh, what game is it? And he was like, oh, it's Thank Goodness You're Here. And I was like, you're joking.
You're joking.
So don't need to do it every single time. Jesus. Bloody Cockney over here. Yeah.
I just like taking the piss out of you.
Yeah, no, but yeah, Thank Goodness You're Here. I got to play.
You're welcome.
Oh, God. So you're just ruining this. Yeah, you can. As well. You can.
Sorry, I'll shut up.
I
now.
actually did make notes to this because I wanted to write a lot. I wanted to talk about it because I was just kind of amazed that I was getting to play this. Of all the games to be like that, to have a random game pop up was the one I was like, yeah, the most excited for after opening night live. But yeah, so opening night live, you play as a little character who I believe has gone to a town. I'm not sure exactly the backstory of it because it was it had started halfway through the game, this short demo. And it's kind of like a cute but funny, mildly offensive adventure game of sorts that's
mildly offensive.
Well, so we'll go on to that part. So your character, you play as this little, very, very small cartoon dude who can only punch and jump. That's the only thing you can do. You punch and you jump, and you can pretty much punch anything. You can jump on anything that is the right level, obviously. But yeah, you can even like punch people, and they just have like a little quip and stuff like that. But it is set in Barnsley, and apparently the Barnsley High Street, or the old Barnsley Market, is the setting for the main area.
Great.
In there, which was brilliant. This is their first game together. Really, really nice guys. And yeah, apparently there's a famous comedian that's voicing one of the parts in there that was rather interesting.
Is it Peter Kay?
It's not. It's a comedian.
Oh.
Yeah, but she was great. But there's just like lots of Yorkshire references. There are so many things that people won't get, which I'm intrigued to see. Like they bring up Ginnell. Now, to those of you who, the vast majority, I'd be surprised if anybody in like watching this knows. A Ginnell is a small alleyway between two houses, a passageway. What do you call them?
An alleyway?
An alleyway. Sounds American. A Ginnell. A Ginnell is like just between the houses. It's maybe a little dirt track sometimes. You know, that's a Ginnell.
Okay, sure.
But yeah, so there's like lots and lots of Yorkshire phrases and expressions. And I did ask them, I'm like, are you going to be translating this to other languages? Like, how do you solve that? And they said, well, obviously it's not just the words that you translate. They have to actually write what they mean by that phrase. So if they go, bayek, like that, it's like an exclamation of, you're quite surprised, or, you may be a little bit, exasperated. So they have to explain, which I thought was quite interesting, especially when a game has got so much colloquial language as this does. It was, so you solve people's problems, you go around. There is a main story to it, and for the main mission, I believe, that I had to do was go and help the pie shop make pies, and because they didn't have any meat.
Oh no.
And they didn't have any pie mix.
Oh no.
So I had to go around and I had to go and help that. And there was like one, there was the characters interacting with each other, but there are also like little mini side stuff. And I don't know if you have to do those mini side stuff to kind of make the main story go along, or if they're just kind of there for you to do. Like there was one, I went into the fishmongers and I needed to make the fish look presentable. Or the fish heads.
The fish heads.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so I punched them, because that's all I can do, really.
Yeah.
Punched all the fish heads so that they all had cigarettes sticking out of their mouths, which appeals to the Barnsley locals, apparently. I can say that, because I'm from Barnsley.
Yeah.
But it was, like, so the art style is very kind of 2D comic book style, quite basic, but easy to kind of see. But the problem I had slightly, and I got lost quite a few times, was there's nothing that's like really obvious about where you're meant to be going, because every little bit is detailed. Every bit is there's no kind of real focus on certain areas that you're meant to be going.
Mm-hmm.
So something in the corner, there might be a box of toys that's got stuff written on it or whatever. That is in exactly the same focus and has exactly the same detail as the thing that you're walking on or you need to interact with. So I got a little bit lost, but I mean, that's part of you're just wandering around and you're punching things and you want to go and see what reactions they make. I mean, it's a game to be played with friends. And I did ask that, and I was like, how long is this game? And they said, a couple of sessions, 5 or 6 hours, a couple of sessions with your friends. And that's what they do. They want the game to be, they said that they wanted the game to be something that you play with a bunch of you around and all watching. And the person that's got the controller, they just got the controller. But like, it's the shared experience, especially if you are intrigued by Northerners, or maybe there is a Northern friend in your friend group who can be like, oh my God, look at, they can explain things to you. I love that Panic Games have given them the opportunity to release this, because it's something that's just so Barnsley and
it's
unique.
A very specific niche that you just don't really see in games. I think as well, the thing to remember with all these previews is that it's an early build of the game. It's not the final thing. So
it ran very smoothly. I got to say, I didn't have any. One thing they did say, they were looking at ways to make it a bit clearer what you have to do. And I think that's why they didn't say anything when I was getting lost.
Exactly. Because as much as you're there to see the game, they're there to see your reaction. And then that gives them feedback that they can tweak. So that is a reason why a lot of these games get shown in. That's the point of previews as well. It's, it goes both ways.
Yeah. And all the, it's all voiced. It's not, there's no text speech.
That's very authentic,
which I do like. It's all, I don't know how, it'd be interesting to see if all the voices are actually Yorkshire or if there's someone putting it on. Yorkshire voice, Yorkshire roles for Yorkshire people.
Of course.
And it's all fully developed and written by those two guys. And I asked them if the dialogue was kind of scripted and stuff, and they said it is, but there was also some like improvisation in the voice. But the humor, I thought the humor was interesting. I loved it. I do wonder if some people might be like, ooh, this is a bit
dark.
Well, dark humor and a bit, there's like cigarettes in fish. I don't know if this would translate well in all other countries. But like I said, I thought it was hilarious. Like there's one bit where you go into the pie shop, and apparently on the boxes, the message on the boxes is like it changes. So everybody's game is going to be different, what it says. And I can't remember which relative it was, but it was like the name of a relative and in brackets, ashes, which I thought was quite funny. But yeah, just like some of the humor and lots of like, they wanted to have like the proper experience of what you'd hear, like overhearing in Barnsley. Mm-hmm. But obviously to a comedic degree. Yeah. Like, oh, I don't believe you're coming out. Like that kind of voice. Where it's like, oh, Margaret, I can't believe you've brought your second bag, and we always should. This kind of voice. But
that sounds pretty normal to me.
How dare you? I mean, that's me putting it on and making it.
Was that put on?
How dare you? Over the top, and that's what the voices are like in there. So it's like there.
Yeah.
It's not authentic. It's kind of over the top.
Yeah.
But the game is purely over the top completely. I mean, the pie thing. I was actually went inside the oven, and then the pie thing blew up, and then the shop became a giant pie. it's you
Of
have to
course it
experience
did.
it. You
Of
have to
course it did.
have to experience it. But yeah, just see if there's anything. Oh yeah, I had to go down a well to unclog some water, but it wasn't clear that I needed to kind of Wario Land 2 style kind of. It was you had to kind of punch through the side of the wall, but it was a bit higher than the ground, so it was the equivalent. Like that area that I got to was where I needed to get to, but in any other game it would have been like a secret area because you had to kind of time a jump and then punch. I had to like punch a wall quite high up. So that bit was a bit confusing to me, and I wonder if they could put like a little worm or even like some crumbly bits coming out of it, so you know that wall is then breakable.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't quite sure. But yeah, slapping fish with cigarettes in their mouths, pie blowing up. There was a girl with braces who was voiced by this comedian, and then the person from the pie produce who would come by, and they were all like really, really, kind of embarrassingly flirting. Have you ever seen Open All Hours?
Yes.
I think this might be that. I think this was definitely referenced, which is set in Doncaster, which is also South Yorkshire, very close to Barnsley. They're very big rivals. But there was so David Jason played. There was Arkwright and oh my god, what was his?
I can't remember the character's name. So I can see them.
It was like I can't remember. But anyway, it was like he fancies a woman that comes into the shop, and they're just like completely like they don't really know how to interact with each other because they're kind of just nerdy little socially awkward people. One works in a pie shop, the other one does some pie produce, and they're like and they've all got these giant braces, and it's just it's comedy. It's cartoon comedy, but with a little dark twist to it.
Open all hours is the classic four candles joke, right?
No, that's Monty Python. No, it's not. It's not Four Candles. That is it's not that one.
Isn't it?
No, Four Candles because it's London, isn't it?
It's like, do you want four candles or four candles?
Yeah, no, it's the two Ronnies, that isn't it? I think it's just two Ronnies. Yeah, it's just two Ronnies.
Oh, that is
because that's London as well. Four Candles. Whereas Open All Hours is Northern.
That's true.
Open All Hours is brilliant. It's just such brilliant humor. And even the remake was quite good. But anyway, I just written, the last thing I wrote was like, it's a hilarious love letter to Barnsley and its people. And I hope a lot of people play it and enjoy it. I hope it's a good game, first of all.
Yeah.
But I hope that, it comes out and it's really well received and puts Barnsley back on the map, because we're not going to be doing that with our football.
Well,
unfortunately.
There you go.
So yeah, did you have any questions?
No, like I saw the trailer at Open Night Live, as we all did for the first time, and immediately thought of you, and thought this game, like you say, is a love letter to, I guess Yorkshire. I didn't know it was Barnsley specifically.
Oh yeah, there's even like Barnes. It was like Barneswick or Barn. No, it's not Barneswick, but it's like the name of the football. There's like a football scarf, and it's red, and it says something like Barnsdale, which is obviously Barnsley.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're both from Barnsley.
But it definitely, even just from the trailer, gave me that like classic British cartoon humor, giving it sort of the Beano kind of vibe.
100%,
all that kind of stuff. So if you like British humor, it seems very much in that style.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope it plays as well as it sounds like it's funny.
Yeah, the actual, like, what do you mean? Like the humor comes over as funny as
no,
it
as
is?
in like, it seems like it's a really humorous game. Like it's going to have a really good script, funny voice acting.
Yeah.
So I just hope that the gameplay can live up to that.
Yeah, I don't think the game is there for its gameplay. Like it's just jumping and punching and running around. And like you can punch a person in the street and they'll just go, I was like, can't believe you. How are you doing? Are you out here all on your own? That kind of, they won't. It's just like you do that to get the humorous comments from people. It feels narrative, but with some little puzzles that you have to kind of go and do. So it's just an experience. It's the Barnsley experience
in a video game.
And I cannot wait to play more of it and see more of it.
Required viewing for me.
Yes, that and Kez.
I've seen Kez.
Have you seen it with subtitles?
Kez.
Yeah.
I watched that back at school.
See, I watched it, and I didn't really understand what they were saying most of the time. Yeah, Casper, come here. Get off the goalpost.
It's a boy who's bullied and he befriends a kestrel. What's not to get about it?
Okay, fine. Sure. No, I mean the voices, like the accents, are very, very strong, even for me to understand.
Yeah.
Anyway, my opinion of thank goodness you're here is it's rate grand, and you have to thank me as well for your for help with your subheading for your
spelling
rate. It's all right. Let's see if it's better than all rate.
I'm sure it will be.
It will be. Okay, so they were the main games.
Well, they were our highlights.
Yeah.
Of sort of our favorite things that we saw. There were a lot of other things that we saw between us. I had some hands-on. I had some hands-off. Lots of hands-on, hands-off. You saw some things as well. So should we just like race through some other stuff that we got to see?
Yep.
I won't say everything, but I'll pick out some of the more interesting bits. Starfield, the first thing I saw. It was not playable at Gamescom.
But it's out on like Friday.
It is. So there are people playing it now for review, but it hasn't been playable in terms of previews or anything like that. What they were showing at Gamescom was a sort of 20-25 minute video, which the press got to see first, and then everyone else who attended could queue up to view. I'm sure that queue was hours and hours long just to watch a video.
Yeah.
The video was essentially the beginning of the game to explain a bit about the story. So you start off as a miner, as in a miner, not a child, in an excavation site, and you basically discover this weird artifact that things go wrong because obviously you then create your character, which seems quite diverse in a nice way. Some nice options, and then you fight some pirates and you go up to space, and then you land on another planet, and then it ended. And my main thought about it was, this is Fallout in space, which is to be expected because it's a Bethesda game, and I think that is essentially what people are expecting Starfield to be. But I felt slightly deflated in that that's kind of all it is from what I've seen. I think there's a lot more to it that isn't in the opening that they will show later. So I know that there's going to be a lot more to Starfield, but that section felt very familiar. It's just like the way that you have conversations with people in first person, the different options, the sort of slightly janky looking animations on people. Shooting, it doesn't have that like Fallout, but it's just fairly standard FPS shooting. Like, it didn't blow me away, basically. I think if you like Bethesda games, you're going to love Starfield. And if you want a Bethesda game set in space, that's exactly what this is. But if you want a really unique and original game, I don't think this is it. From what I've seen personally, which is literally 20 minutes. So, you know, there are people out there who have played it and will know more than me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing it. I'll play it and see what it's like. But I just hope it's not a game where you have to make your own story.
I think there will be a sort of clear quest line. Yeah.
And I hope it's good. Because they've got all this space. They've got like hundreds, if not thousands of planets that have got these. And apparently some of the best things about this are going to these random planets and actually like finding these outposts and like the detail that's on them. But I like a game where I'm not necessarily like the story is brilliant on its own. You don't need to kind of use your imagination too much to create your own story. But I'm apparently I did see a tweet earlier today that said you're going to be able to like create your own planets and your own storylines with mods and things. Like, it's going to be really mod friendly, and that could be, which I don't need.
That's bullshit because, sorry, Bethesda, do the work yourself. Don't rely on modders to make your game more interesting.
Well, maybe it's going to be interesting enough on its own.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I think I get a slight Breath of the Wildy sense to it in terms of there is a main quest to follow, but I think there's a lot of like, just run off and explore, and you might uncover something in a side area that you wouldn't have otherwise. I think there's a lot of that kind of vibe in terms of making your own story, in inverted commas.
Yeah.
I think I definitely want to play it. It's an interesting game. I just don't think it's going to be the most mind-blowing, original, advancing gameplay kind of game. It's Fallout in space.
I think you're right as well about the side story stuff because, this will go out quite later, but we did hear about that side mission. I can't remember who it was that told us.
Yeah, we've talked to people who are playing it, so
and they've been blown away by some of the side stuff that they've just stumbled across.
Yeah, so there's bits of that. I wanted to talk about Dungeons of Hinterberg.
Who?
So this was on the Xbox stand. It was shown at the Xbox Showcase, I believe, in Summer Games Fest. And it
Remind
is
myself.
set in Austria,
Oh, okay.
in the Alps. I believe Hinterberg is an actual place, I think.
Money lives there.
And the graphics of this are this sort of graphic comic book style. So there's almost like a filter over the graphics.
Yeah.
It's kind of almost cell shaded, but with this sort of pointillism filter to make it look like it's all drawn.
Yeah.
Essentially, it plays a bit like a Zelda game. So you have this central town, which is all very Austrian, up in the Alps and mountains and beautiful lakes and typical Austrian style buildings. And you can go and talk to people, and you have friendships with them. And you, as you develop the friendship, it unlocks new features. And then you go off to these 4 different areas, each one filled with, I think it's maybe around 20 different dungeons, which I think act a bit like Zelda shrines, but they're longer. Like a Zelda shrine, you can do in about 2 minutes, some of them. These are more like 20 minutes to half an hour, each one.
Each one, wow.
Some of them are more puzzly, some of them are more combat, some of them have like bosses in them. But you go down and you solve kind of Zelda-y style puzzles within these dungeons. But it's set in kind of present day Austria. So it's not fantasy. I mean, it is in that there are like, I guess you're fighting goblins, but it's not like a fantasy world. Like it's very much set in Austria.
Yeah.
And like I saw the 2 devs, they weren't in the session, but they were outside and we said, oh, you know, we really liked it. And they're like, oh, thank you very much. In a strong Austrian accent that I'm not going to do. But it seems like it's an Austrian developer creating this game that's a love letter, like love letter to Yorkshire. This is a love letter to Austria, but in this Zelda style dungeon game that actually feels really fun to play. I had these 2 magic abilities, magic inverted commas really. So you could like summon a bomb, like a big metal bomb. There was another one I've totally forgotten. And I think you get different abilities in the 4 different areas. So those dungeons revolve around those abilities in different ways and the way you kind of, you know, do stuff. And yeah, there were some cows in a field that was lovely. It just felt very Austrian, but in a Zelda-y way. So like Moni, absolutely. Our mod Moni, you need to go and play it, absolutely. But I genuinely think everyone else will enjoy it. If you like Zelda, it's going to be a really fun game. And the art styles, like I say, is really unique. So go look up Dungeons of Hinterberg.
Great.
Sonic Superstars.
Yes.
An interesting one.
Because you love Sonic.
I do love Sonic. I'm a big Sonic fan. I grew up on Sonic. This is a return to 2D Sonic. So we had Sonic Frontiers last year, which was all 3D. This is a 2D game. And is sort of a return to classic Sonic, is how they're billing it. However, it's also a 4-player co-op game.
Okay, a bit like Disney. What's it called? Disney...
Oh god, I forgot the name. Something Island.
Illusion Island.
Illusion Island, thank you.
I say Delusion Island.
Yeah. Or like the Mario like Wii U games where you can play as 4 characters. So in this, you've got Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy. And you can play through these levels with 4 characters. Well, up to 4. So I actually played it both single player and in 2-player because they only had 2 players an option.
Okay.
And in single player, I enjoyed it. It is classic Sonic. It's all new zones. The big twist is that you have emerald powers. So you collect the Chaos Emeralds as you do in all Sonic games, but this time they give you powers, each one, that you can then use. So you select it with the right stick and then press a button. So it might be that you get the power of water, where you can then climb up waterfalls, or which might take you to a secret area. Or there's a power that reveals hidden platforms that again use to access new areas. Or there's one called Avatar, I think, where you get lots of copies of yourself that will destroy all the enemies on screen for you. But they're all pretty superfluous. You don't need to use them to complete the game. They're more there. I don't want to say it's an accessibility thing because it's not accessibility.
In easy mode.
It kind of adds to it. Like if you're a bit stuck, it adds a new layer to it, basically. But it's got all the kind of classic Sonic things, classic Sonic tunes, classic Sonic animations. It doesn't feel quite as good as classic Sonic or Sonic Mania in terms of the feel of like jumping and the movement. But it's not as stiff as, say, Episode 4, if you play Sonic 4. If you played that, it feels better than that. But I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was a bit cheap, as Sonic sometimes is, and that's fine.
We've got Sonic at home.
you get a bit used to it. Just things like I mean cheap in terms of difficulty. So it's like you're running really quick and then it just puts an enemy right in your path, and it's like you've got to learn
to dodge it.
Because you've got to learn the roots of it. So the first time you go through, you'll hit spikes in annoying areas and things like that. That's just classic Sonic design, basically. So there's a lot of that. But I also played it in 2-player. And for me...
Who are you playing with?
The PR.
Okay.
And for me, Sonic fundamentally does not work in multiplayer, which is a real shame. Because the whole point of Sonic is that you're running quick. You want to run through the levels as quickly as possible to get as many rings as you can in the shortest time. It's kind of like a racing game in a way. And the thrill of it is going through loops and jumps and stuff as quickly as possible. Yeah, when you lose speed, that's when Sonic sucks.
It shouldn't be co-op. It feels like it should be PvP, like maybe 2 lines, you know.
And we've had that in Sonic games in the past. They've had multiplayer games. Sonic 2 had that. And I
take your word for it. I've never really got into Sonic.
Yeah. So Sonic 2 started that. And yeah, it's split screen, but you're running through separately.
Actually, I have played that with my friend.
Yeah, you're running through it separately. Whereas this is all on one screen. And the problem is that there's an effect in Sonic where when you're running so quickly, he like flies off the screen because he's just so quick that, you know, he can't even be contained by the game itself. But then you've got someone else running along who gets lost. And then it's like, oh, I'm off the screen. And now I have to press a button to teleport back to my partner again.
No. Because that's another reason why I brought up Disney Illusion Island, because that had similar...
Because we played that together.
Yeah, and we didn't really like the multiplayer in that, did we?
We struggled because the screen just couldn't quite contain 2 characters. And this is that, but even worse, because you're spinning off in different directions. And it feels that you end up really losing the flow of Sonic because the camera can't keep up with you and you're flying off in different directions. For me, it just didn't work as a Sonic game. And that was in 2-player. And you can play this in 4-player. So 4 characters running around, I just don't see how that can work.
What game was it that it was like it'd pan out if you were separate, but then if you got too far away, it would then just go into like split screen? I'm trying to think of the game it was.
I think a few have done that, but this is literally one screen, it just stays the same.
Yeah. God, it's going to annoy me now.
So yeah, Sonic Superstars. I think if you want to play it as a solo game, as you would with most previous Sonic games.
I know what it was. WWE 2K19.
Oh, sure.
If you go off the screen, if you're too far away from each other, it goes into split screen.
Okay.
Very good. Very similar.
So yeah, I think as a single player game, I will enjoy Sonic Superstars, but as a multiplayer game, it just fundamentally is flawed for me. I just don't see how it works as a 2-player game, or 3.
Seems like it was pointless them doing that.
Yeah, they're just trying to come up with new twists on 2D gameplay, and it didn't quite work for me.
And they've got Sonic. Why don't they just do? I mean, it's not the same company, I know. Sonic Mania 2.
Well, that's the thing. It's a different developer. It's all Sega, but it's different developers within it.
Yeah.
And Sonic Mania was really popular because it was so close to the original games. And this is a different developer, and it's not as good as Sonic Mania, to be honest. So that's a shame. Persona 5 Tactica. This is a spin-off of Persona 5, not the first one. We've already had Persona 5 Strikers.
Is this after or before Strikers?
After.
After Strikers. Okay.
And what I like about these spin-offs is that they're all a different type of gameplay. So Persona 5 is your typical Persona gameplay, turn-based RPG. We all know and love it. It's incredibly popular. You need to finish it. It's incredibly popular. It's the best Persona game. It's great.
Yeah.
Persona 5 Strikers was then this sort of Muzu-style game.
Go on,
like Dynasty Warriors. So it's real-time combat, and it's you against loads and loads of enemies. So like you might have played the Zelda Warrior games or Fire Emblem Warriors, or like Hyrule Warriors and all that. Strikers plays like that. So it looks and feels like Persona, but the battles are different. Persona 5 Tactica, as the name implies, is a tactical strategy game. So it's turn-based, but it's on a grid, and you're moving around quite simplified in terms of strategy. To me, it plays very similar to Mario & Rabbids.
Okay,
which
I'm
I
gonna
know
buy
you
it.
like.
I'm going to buy it. Is there a Rabbid Morgana?
There is not, but you do play as Morgana. What I like is the way that they have translated Persona 5 combat into tactics. So you've got all similar spells, you've got weapons, like melee weapons and guns, and you've got your all-out attack equivalent. So in Persona 5, when you exploit a weakness or a critical attack, that enemy is downed. And if you can down all the enemies, you then get an all-out attack. This works where if you down an enemy by doing the same thing, you can then position your characters. It's all about positioning and hiding behind cover so that you can't be attacked. And if you position your characters in a triangle around a downed enemy, that can then trigger an all-out attack. And if there are other enemies within there, they all get hit. So it's moving around on a grid. Everything is done in this kind of cutesy, kind of chibi style, which is slightly different to the original. Well, it's quite different to the original Persona 5. But all the same characters. There are new characters. It has great music, as you'd expect. Great menu style. So it feels very Persona, as you would want. But it has very different combat, which is, like I say, sort of simplified, but still fun strategy. It's got potential to be more complex later. I played an early bit that was sort of teaching you the basics. But it was really fun. I can't remember when that's out exactly, but it was fun.
And you enjoying them continuing the story?
I didn't get to see a lot of it.
Okay.
So it takes place later. It's all the same characters, so familiar faces, which is nice. But I didn't get to play a lot of that.
Did you finish Strikers?
Yes.
Okay. And did they progress the story in a way that was interesting? Because I loved what I played of Persona 5, which I know is only like 3 or 4 dungeons in. I finished the artist dude.
That's the second.
Ooh, okay, there's one after that, whatever it was. Don't need to spoil it, but yeah.
I can't remember.
It was the third one I think I was starting. I think you have to go and do the little, what they called the underground one.
Mm-hmm.
You have to Mementos. I think you have to do those a few bits. Yep. But so I'm interested because then am I going to finish Persona 5 one day in the future and then be like, I need to go and play the others because the story continues.
I mean, Persona 5 for me has a very complete story, and I really like that story, and it sort of didn't need spin-offs. I like Persona 5 a lot, so I'm perfectly happy to play more Persona, so that's great. I don't think the story necessarily added too much in Strikers, but I enjoyed experiencing the world again. I like the characters. I like that combat was different, so it felt refreshed. This, I think, will probably be similar. Yeah. I don't know really how much the story is going to be great, and I don't know how much the social aspects fit into this either. But combat is new and different. Yeah, so that's cool. Nice. I played some other bits, but why don't you talk about something that you've played?
I played Bulwark, Falconeer Chronicles. It was because I was like, is it Bullock? I know it's Bulwark, Falconeer Chronicles, which I believe is in early access at the moment. It is made by Thomas Sala. It's a game. And he made Falconeer, I believe. Was it just called Falconeer?
Maybe The Falconeer?
The Falconeer. Yes, The Falconeer does ring a bell. But yeah, so this is a game where you are, it's a whole kind of sea with various little islands and tiny little rocky outposts, rocky islands. And you have to kind of develop a place there and have to build a base. And I saw the free mode part at the beginning, so you the sandbox mode, and you just click on things and you're using the controller, and it just builds these really it just builds civilizations on these rocks, and you'll go from rock to rock, and then it'll just naturally create them for you. You're not selecting the houses, you're just selecting maybe, okay, from this point to this point is going to be a bridge, and then they'll naturally kind of build on these different parts. Different houses or shops or whatever. But then you can also build a mine where there's areas to mine, and you connect it to your various civilizations or your various towns, and then you're able to build more and more. So it seems like a game that you kind of just chill for a little bit with, and you kind of build. It's a little bit more of a tactical townscaper.
Okay.
Which townscaper, you're just clicking on things and it's just naturally building houses and stuff for you. It's very much like that. And apparently there are pirates. There's certain people that you can interact with. Apparently initially, whenever you speak to another faction, they're friendly. So it's not all about attack. There is, I believe, combat in that. I didn't really get to that part because we were showing the sandbox mode. But check out the early access if you want to have a look at it. It's got a very unique art style. I love that you can just click on 2 things and then it'll naturally create a town based on that bridge that you've made, and it'll build a town along the bridge, and on the sides it'll have a certain area. And yeah, you can, you're just kind of, it's like a city builder, but you're just kind of, it's just a very, very simplified city builder. And Thomas Sala, who is the man who made it, he was actually giving me the talk through, which one of my favorite things about Gamescom is getting to meet the people that make the games.
Yeah.
And hearing from them, not through a PR. Like literally you're talking to this person, I'm literally talking to Thomas, and it was like, wow, you made it. And obviously they're extra passionate about it because they've been spending all their time playing it.
Of course.
But yeah, I think the best way to describe it is just like a very simple city builder. There are various things like with resources and being able to kind of trade and building. For example, you have to build a harbor, or you have to attach a harbor to your, God, I want to say like citadel, or I don't know how to even describe it, because it's like a village.
Mm-hmm.
But you expand it by linking certain things to it. But you've got just so much, like, there's just so much choice of where you go. Like everybody's is going to be completely different. You're not like restricted to posting certain parts of the town in certain areas. You can literally like build it all around these rocks that stick up. So yeah, you're building like a harbor, and then you have to go and put another harbor near where there's an iron deposit or whatever, and so that then you can get more iron, and then you can build your town a bit more. And eventually, I believe like you can colonize the entire map. It is a huge map, but it is just a really chilled one of those. And nice. I would give it a go. And then afterwards, I went and played Gori, Cuddly Carnage, which is the complete opposite, and in fact is the opposite of Stray.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got a cat.
Okay.
It's set in cats. We love cats. It is set in a cyberpunk universe, similar to Stray. But you are riding a hoverboard that swears, and you're killing murderous unicorns.
What? The hoverboard speaks?
The hoverboard has a little face on it, and it speaks, and it swears, but when it swears, it gets beeped. Okay. However, apparently later on you can upgrade it so that it removes the beeping, and it can just, F and Jeff as much as it wants.
Lovely.
And I just really like the movement of that. So yeah, you'll use your hoverboard to kind of slice apart these unicorns, these murderous, bloodthirsty unicorns. They're all very kind of cartoony, coming at you. And it's a lot of kind of like grinding along neon poles and going from area to area. There's a lot of speed involved, very different to Stray. So, I mean, like, yeah, literally, it's a cat in a neon cyberpunk universe, but that is exactly where it stops, because there's combat in it. There's a lot of, traversal and, kind of grinding ropes and trying to grab on things. And it's really cool, because if you are jumping from, like, one rail to another rail, and obviously you're with the controller, you might not be exactly, might not be really precise. So you might not make that second rail. There's a button to quickly, like, grab back onto it and go. And it just feels really fluid and enjoyable. I don't know how like fun that's going to be for a really long game, because it did seem like there were quite a few worlds to this. Like I just looked at a level. I was at a level where we were underground quite a bit, and there's a lot of slime, like neon radioactive slime there.
Of course, it's radioactive.
Of course. But there are also like other levels that deal with different areas of the world. Which I didn't have a look at. So I think it's like a sizable game, for a platformer. It's obviously an indie game. It's a Swedish studio that's doing this. And it seems like it's going to be a fun game for people that like kind of cutesy, wild platformers with hoverboards and an interesting bit of humor. I didn't actually hear it. I believe it was voiced. In fact, it was voiced, but I didn't have the headphones on, so I can't comment on that, because I was just chatting to the person.
So was there a lot of swearing?
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a little bit of sass from the hoverboard.
A sassy hoverboard.
Yeah. And and the combat was actually quite interesting as well, like charged attacks and charged spins and like uncontrollable spinning. So that was fun.
Why don't you tell us about Cities Skyline 2?
I will do after you tell me about your date.
Oh, are we finishing?
Well, we'll go back to it, but I want
Okay.
you to be to
Well,
talk a bit because I want to hear about your date.
Well, I'll whip through a few things because we've talked a lot already. But yeah, I went on a date in Like a Dragon
Ooh.
Gaiden, which is a sort of spin-off to Like a Dragon. Like a Dragon is the name of the Yakuza series. So before we get to Like a Dragon 8, which will be the next turn-based one, that we've got Gaiden as this spin-off, and it's a return to the classic Yakuza vibe of sort of action combat.
Oh,
not
is it really? I
turn-based.
didn't realize this.
Yeah, it's action combat. There is a new agent style of combat where he has gadgets he can use, which is kind of cool. And I played a little demo that took place basically on a ship that was like an adult theme park. So it's kind of like Vegas on a ship,
Interesting.
which was odd. And it was a time demo, 20 minutes, run off and explore. Most people just went straight for the combat, which was the story. And I wandered off and ended up in a cabaret bar where I had a date with a hostess. And this has happened before in these games, in the series.
So this happened before to you?
No, in the series. However, this is the first time that they're using live action hostesses.
But like
So
the game,
it's-
so it just suddenly becomes a live action.
Yeah. So you're running around as Kiryu, in graphics, computer graphics. And then suddenly it switches to first person and there's a real Japanese woman. And you can choose one of 3 hostesses. I could only choose one of them. And then I could have a date with her. And I bought her a drink. I bought her the most expensive champagne.
Ooh.
And we talked about how much we like karaoke.
Yeah.
And I bought her some expensive earrings. I gave her some expensive
Very
earrings as
kind
a
of you.
gift.
Yeah.
And every time you do something nice or like agree with her in conversation, like a heart meter goes up. Now, I unfortunately did not get it high enough to see what happens when it maxes out. Because she basically said, "Oh, thank you very much. See you next time," and it ended. But yeah, she was in a relatively revealing outfit.
This reminds me of in Yakuza 6, where I went to an internet cafe and was chatting to a person, and I believe they're live action. In fact, I'll show you. I believe from this picture reminds me live action, where you are talking to her and you have to use button prompts to pass it, and as you are doing it, she removes her clothes until she was literally in a bra. And I was worried about whether I should actually like cover. In fact, I think I covered the screen because I wasn't quite sure if she would get her tits out. And I'm like, I'm going to get into trouble on Twitch if I've got somebody getting her boobs out. But
yeah, there was no clothing removal in this. Yeah, it was interesting. It's one of those things I don't quite know why it exists. It exists because it's part of Japanese culture, and that's fine. But for a Westerner, it was a bit of a shock to play through that.
What were you
I
doing in
wasn't
there?
expecting it.
So you buying her a drink?
Yeah, you just chat to them.
Oh.
Because hostesses are there to sort of, you pay to be entertained by them, I guess, and for them to look after you. And they bring, you say, "Oh, we want some champagne," and then they bring it. And yeah, it's just, it's normal in Japan. And I guess for me as a white British gay man, it felt a little bit seedy. And I wasn't a big fan of it. But, I appreciate that is just not part of my world. So there we go. That was interesting.
Well, that sounds fantastic.
I played some Mortal Kombat. I'm not very good at Mortal Kombat, it turns
Is it a
out.
board game or something now?
So we got to play a new single-player mode called Invasion, which acts a bit like a board game. It looks a bit like Mario Party. So it's like an area, and you follow a path with nodes, and it branches off in different areas, and each node is a new battle or mini game or something under specific conditions. So it might be that there are demons flying across that throw fire at you in the middle of battle or something like that, and it kind of loosely creates a storyline. I was stuck on literally the second node for a very long time.
Oh dear.
Because I suck at that game. So yeah, it was Mortal Kombat. It was brutal and violent, and I guess exactly what Mortal Kombat fans want. I'm not a big fighting game fan, so I struggled with that. But there we go.
Oh.
I had a meeting with the creator of Broken Sword.
Honestly, this is why Gamescom's so cool.
Classic point and click. I forgot his name. Charles Cecil. was his name.
Mm-hmm. How was he?
And- Sorry?
How was he?
He was eccentric and adorable, and I love him. There are 2 Broken Sword games coming out. There is the very first game that's being remastered, and that's, I think, coming out relatively soon. And so he was showing me a lot of side-by-side comparisons of the original and then the new one, which has been upscaled. Now, interestingly, they have used AI to do that. However, I asked about it, and essentially it's using AI to do the basics. And then an artist will go in and fill in the details and bring it to life. So the kind of boring work of just filling in color and things like that no artist seemingly enjoys doing, that's done by AI. So it's a tool, but it's then handcrafted afterwards, and all the detail and stuff are put in by people. So it's using AI as a tool. It's not like taking away jobs from artists. It's making it easier for them.
Well, we'll see what artists say about that.
We will. But it does look stunning.
Have you got a piece going up about that?
I will do, yeah. So there's that, and then there is Broken Sword 6, which is going to be a brand new one. And basically, he took me through his holiday photos to explain to me what the game is about.
Is it still the same old point and click?
It will be, yeah.
Will it be as obtuse and unusual and like how to choose the answers as the old ones are? Or is that just because I was young? Were they...
So, well, have you played Broken Sword?
I played through some of them and then I got stuck so early on because I'm like, what am I meant to do? I don't know what I'm meant to...
We talked a lot about difficulty and puzzles. And actually, there's a new mode being added to the remaster of the first one that will not even highlight things. It's little things to make it easier. So if maybe you need to use a certain item to progress, okay, and you've got your inventory, you will use an item. If that item didn't work, it will then be grayed out in your inventory.
Good.
So almost by process of elimination, you can work out what to do. So little things like that, just to make it a little bit easier. Or there might be a little flashing thing in a corner that you can click on that gives you a small hint. But he was very clear on he wants things to be logical and he wants things to be based on fact and history. So that's why the story is based on real history. And he told me all about it, and like hundreds of years of history in this castle where Percival's grail was seemingly stolen. And he was holidaying there with his family and was showing me pictures, and he showed me some grail stones.
Wasn't he asking you what to call the game?
Well, they hadn't decided yet if it was Percival's stone or Percival's grail. And it seems like grail might be what they land on.
Thanks to you?
Which seems, well, not really thanks to me, but it seems a little bit better from what he was talking about. And he showed me some grail stones, which were 2 tiny, tiny pebbles, which he then put in his mouth to get them wet, and then started rubbing them together. And then he was like, look, they're bleeding. And it was like this red liquid coming out of the stone. Now, I think it's just when they get wet, it probably reacts to liquid and sort of just dissolves slightly. So it looks like they're bleeding. But obviously, people call them grail stones because I'm sure people think it's the blood of Christ or something that's coming from these stones. And it was just this really fascinating story.
So you got blood from a stone?
Literally. Fascinating story of this old castle being built and no one's really been there. And this explorer found it in the 30s and it's all very Indiana Jones. And he just was such an eccentric guy, but adorable and lovely. And it was such a fascinating meeting that I just would not expect from anyone else. So that was really good. And I don't really know Broken Sword. I obviously know the basics of point and click adventures, but I've never really played one properly. So that was really interesting to find out more about. Resistor is a really interesting looking little indie game. The developer worked for both Codemasters and BioWare. They worked on Mass Effect and Dragon Age. And this game, Resistor, they're calling a CarPG. So the idea is it's a racing game, but it's also an RPG.
Sounds it, yeah.
And so it's a mixture of Codemasters and like Mass Effect Dragon Age.
When you said Codemasters, I'm like, they only make racing games, don't they?
So the racing side of things feels sort of Burnout-y, F-Zero-y. It's all about speed. It's about stunt racing. So it's not about who gets there first. It's about doing it with style. So you
Okay.
can flip and corkscrew. You can spin to hit other
Danger.
cars.
Yeah.
You can drift around corners at high speeds, all this kind of stuff. But then you're playing as a character who you create. And the characters are described almost like wrestlers. So they're like superstars, and you can create your own entrances like a wrestler with your own music and effects and stuff. And you can create all of that as part of your character creator. And then there's a story, and you get companions that join you in your car that give you different abilities. And then there's this huge open world you can drive and walk around to then meet and talk with people and go on quests. So it's not just about racing in a tournament. It's like you get given a quest that then relates back to racing. The world can then be like customized based on how things are. So maybe there's a mountain and you have to drive around it. But then once you've done that, you can then build a tunnel to go through it. So that's your equivalent of fast travel, basically. So it's this huge open world RPG and all these different endings based on the branching paths. You could become the villain in your own story, because maybe you make choices that then everybody turns against you and you become the villain in the story. So all these different possibilities in terms of an RPG, but it's all based around racing.
Does it interest you because you're not a racing fan?
I'm not, but I don't like a racing game if I have to brake. So I love F-Zero. I love Mario Kart. I love that more like Wipeout. I love the more arcadey style of racing, and that's what this is. But I also love RPGs. So this really kind of brings those two worlds together in a really interesting and a really ambitious way. It's a small indie developer, but all these huge ideas, which if they can pull it off, I think will be great. So that was really interesting. And then the last one I'll bring up is Where Winds Meet. Now, this was on the NetEase stand. It's a Chinese developer. And it is one of the most stunning looking games I've seen. The idea of this game, it's an open world sort of RPG adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of it is that they are bringing wuxia to the West.
Yeah.
So I really hope I'm pronouncing this right. I'm probably not. I'm not sure if it's wuxia. Essentially, the simplest way I can describe it, and I do not want to sort of diminish a lot of Chinese literature and fantasy and whatever else.
You've only got certain things to base it on.
Yeah.
Your knowledge is limited.
And in the West, it hasn't come to the West that much. But think Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, basically. It is Chinese fantasy, but based on sort of classical history, ancient China. So when you think of the sort of beautifully dancing choreographed battles and like flying through the sky with swords and martial arts, all that kind of stuff, that's wuxia.
Yeah.
And that is what they are bringing to the West in this game. So they've decided to make a big open world game because that's typical of gaming, and they want it to be approachable for people all around the world.
And hopefully it'll, create interest in the whole genre.
Yeah. But it has that typical wuxia kind of stuff. They have different stances of combat, which are all based on animals. So there's like a lion one and a praying mantis stance, and all that have different moves. There's this idea of kind of your character flying in the sky, and they literally like float up to the sky, but you're not flying. The idea is that you've changed your breath to make you lighter. And that allows you to sort of do sort of incredible acrobatics and like running up walls and leaping into the sky and flying and falling down to new areas.
Oh, this sounds good. Why hasn't this happened in a game? I'm sure it has been in a game before, but like this sounds very appealing.
Yeah. And the world, like this beautiful world that feels instantly kind of Chinese in terms of its landscapes, like mountains and the mist and the like leaves being swept up in the wind and all this kind of stuff. Like just the most beautiful world. And it really feels like you're in that wuxia fantasy, but because it's a Chinese developer, it's I mean, to me as a white British guy, it feels very authentic, and it's a world that I really, really want to get stuck into.
I'm interested. That's two very interesting games coming out of China.
Exactly. They're probably two of my favorites as well. I then got to play it, and it's coming to PC. They're not sure yet about consoles, but it will come to PC. Now it will have controller support when it comes out.
Wait, they didn't let you play a third like
A third-person action
person, I was gonna
combat
say third
game
party.
with mouse and keyboard I had to play,
a
which I'm sure a lot of people
No.
are fine with, and they're
people
used
aren't
to.
fine. I think most
I was
people aren't
not.
fine with that. No,
I was not. And they're kind of literally surround me watching. It was like just me and them, like watching me play this game. And I'm like trying to move around with WASD and click to attack and trying to get the timing right of parrying, which is like 2 mouse button presses. And like I was useless at that game. I didn't die, but I was useless. And they're kind of like watching me trying to help. And I was like, I feel really embarrassed because I'm really bad. And I know that with a controller, I know I could have done that. It's just I'm not used to mouse and
you
keyboard.
need to learn maybe.
Maybe. And then they kind of started showing me another stuff. And they're like, oh, do you want to go? And I was like, no, you play. Let me watch you. I
Yeah.
want to see what you can do in this game, not me being really bad. So that was, yeah, it was an interesting session. Like, because that's the thing. Sometimes you see a game and then you're like, you just don't have the best experience with it. But I can tell that game is going to be incredible when it comes out, which I think will be next year. So yeah, it's just this absolutely beautiful world.
I want to see more. I feel like so many games that we saw here this year are coming out next year.
Yeah.
So I feel like when we're watching these events, we're watching like the PlayStation or the Xbox or whatever these showcases are coming out. There are going to be quite a few games like, we know that one.
Mhm.
You saw that one. You played it. I feel like Gamescom really is something that where you can play games that are in the future because it's mainly press. Press understand that games are going to be a work in progress, that you're going to play it. Lords of the Fallen we're playing with, it was like the cutscenes were all really glitchy and it's like, oh, there's another build coming out tomorrow. It's like, okay, yeah, you know that kind of thing is going to be fixed.
Yeah.
Whereas if you show that just to the general public, they might be like, this game's going to be trash, look at it.
I mean, there are some games like Lords of the Fallen, Lies of P, they're out like next month or the month after.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that's coming out at the end of the year. But then, yeah, you get to see stuff well in advance.
Yes.
Which is really cool.
Excellent.
Go on then. Tell us about your experience with Cities Skyline 2.
So yeah, I went over to Cities Skylines 2. They Paradox International Interactive. They were at Gamescom, but they had a little area outside of the convention center. And I say outside the convention center, you had to go over this giant overpass, which went over a train line. It took us like about 20 minutes of walking there. Maybe no, it wasn't because we set off at it was over half an hour. Like this is how big the conference was. Like it wasn't that far away from the conference hall, but it took us 30 minutes and we were still late by a couple of minutes. But it was fine because they were, taking a while. But yeah, so we went over to there and I was going to go and chat with them for a business thing because there's we're having talks about something and I wanted to chat to the guy I know there. And yeah, he's such a nice guy. And yeah, they were doing a thing called Cities in the Sky, which is for these big streamers. They're gonna stick them on this on this rig, which has I'd say about 12, 15 PCs, all playing Cities Skylines 2. But what they'll do is they'll lift you up 50 meters in the air, which is 163 feet, which sounds
50 meters.
50 meters in the air from a crane attached to this rig, and you then playing Cities Skylines 2. And I went over there with the owner because she was going to do it. So I'm just gonna have a quick drink now because I've got a really dry throat for some reason.
Me too.
So I went with the owner. I was like, I'll come over with you and chat. And the guy was like, so Ben, do you want to be in it? Do you want to go on it? And I'm like, yes, I would love to play Cities Skylines 2 on the ground. But I'd love to play it because Cities Skylines 1, it's a while ago since I played it, but I adored it. Like it's one of those games that you just play constantly for like 14 days, complete addicted to it. And I was like, yeah, I really, really want to play it. And the opportunity, as it often does with me, just was like, yeah, I'd love to do that. That's amazing. Sure. And so I went in, they strapped me up to it. And it's weird because you're attached to like a gaming chair. You're like this chair that I'm on now. It's pretty much the same size, everything there.
You've got straps on though.
They put straps. The straps like come through the thing. So you are strapped to the chair, but it is still a gaming chair pretty much. It feels like one. And then they lift you up. And like at a certain point, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't actually like heights. And
great.
The adrenaline had got the better of me and I always say yes to things and then
regret it later.
Like I was handing out the award for it was on behalf of Marvelous Europe at the Gaming Awards a couple of years ago, and it was the most, can you remember? best original game, was it something like that, or
I can't remember which it was.
best representation? I think it was, which I gave to Life is Strange: True Colors, and I'd said yes that I would hand that out, and then like having a bit of a panic attack literally from the day after, being like, oh shit, I've got to go and like present this to hundreds of people and in front of hundreds of people, but I did it, and then at the end I was like, I was terrifying, but it was worth it. And pretty much the same happened here. Like they lifted you up, and I was getting higher and higher, and going, oh, this is high, this is really high, and then it goes past this overpass, which was already a fair few, it was high. I mean, I don't know with heights and lengths and stuff. It was 15 meters high. So it was, whatever that is.
What the overpass was.
Yeah, the overpass. So you go past the overpass and I'm like, oh my God, they can see. In fact, if you go to youtube.com/biggestbennis, I put the entire live stream on there. But as you go past the overpass, there's like people filming it and like cars going past. And then it just continues to go higher and higher and higher until it reaches, pretty much the top of the crane. I'm like, is it going to go much further? Because it's going to hit the side of the crane. And then they left us to dangle there for over an hour while we played City Skylines 2. And I think I would have enjoyed it. There were just two things that would have made it less terrifying. One of them was if it wasn't windy and rainy. So it was
that doesn't help.
It was very, very windy. It was pretty rainy. Like it was rain. It wasn't like torrential downpour, but there was some severe rain. And because of the wind, we were spinning. Not fast or anything like that. We were turning slowly. And sometimes I think they did it deliberately, like they turned the crane thing. So you then had, you went 180 degrees. But there were certain parts that were like, there was a good 15 minutes where I'm just getting absolutely soaked because the wind is blowing all the rain onto me, onto my keyboard. It's also going against, because I've got a monitor for my PC. I've also got a vertical monitor next to me that's flapping around and isn't tied down. Like it's attached obviously to the the plug, but it's like flapping around like with the wind, and I'm like, shit, if this falls over and like falls out and the cable comes out, it's going to be plummeting 50 meters to the ground, and so God hope nobody's down there. I'm guessing when they were up there, they were like, nobody can go below it, because there's also other stuff. They gave us like glass bottles. There were no bottles that weren't glass. I'm like, I'd like some, it's like, do you have any water? And they're like, yeah, just get anything from the fridge you want. And I'm like, is there anything that's not glass? Like literally everything is glass. They're like, oh, you'll be fine. Just don't put it on the edge.
Wow.
Even the mouse was wireless. Even though I
could have just chucked it.
Yeah, I could. But what if I'd like knocked it? What if I'd gone to reach the glass or something and accidentally knocked the mouse? Well, that's me. I can't play anymore, can I? Because the mouse is currently in pieces, 50 meters below me. So yeah, that was just terrifying. And yeah, the fact it was turning and the wind and stuff was blowing on me and like everything. I had my phone in my pocket. It would have been really cool to take a selfie, but I was not in a million years ready to take anything out of my pocket. I couldn't even move. I was holding on because I was on the corner. I was literally holding on to the table the entire time. In fact, if you watch the clip, you can see my arm like just to the one side. If my arm is to one side like this, I'm like clinging onto the table
for dear life.
For dear life. And because the main thing, I think the main thing that made me like more nervous was the fact it felt like I was in a gaming chair. And we're both in gaming chairs right now, and they're not the most stable things.
Nope.
Like if I pushed back hard enough, it'd probably snap in half. So I was like in this, and it was moving a bit. And that's not that. I looked over. There was a girl next to me, pulling it as far back as she can, leaning back in it, spinning around, like turning around so she could have a look outside. I was like, "What's the matter with you? What on earth?" But I think if you'd been in like kind of like a plastic bucket kind of seat, that's properly, like a roller coaster seat. If it had been like one of those fixed ones that maybe even like was over the top of you, or it was properly strapped in anyway. But that, I mean, you wouldn't need to be like that because you're not going upside down. Hopefully, the wind wasn't that strong. But like with I don't know, the seats didn't feel stable because in my mind it's like, oh, this is a gaming chair. So I literally didn't move the entire time. And in fact, halfway through, I had to have some water, and I was just like holding with both hands. And yeah, we're up there for over an hour. Got to play City Skylines 2. I was absolutely terrible at it. I kept apologizing. There was someone coming in trying to backseat me. I'm like, fuck off. I'm too busy. I'm looking down and I can see people who are like little ants right now. So I don't give a damn about getting good gameplay. And it's like, play. Waste. Like, I guess because I'd forgotten to put like a road to my waist thing, or I don't know. But anyway, I was not concentrating on the game. So if you do go and watch me playing it on YouTube, I apologize for the gameplay. The gameplay is absolutely terrible, but I had other concerns going on in my head.
I had a meeting while you were doing that, so I wasn't able to watch. And then I was knackered, so I went home also during that rain.
Look at you.
But I've watched some of the VOD afterwards, and I mean, it looks pretty terrifying. You can see, obviously, you're only in the corner from your camera, but you can see you rising and rising and rising, and it looks, even just from the VOD, it looks pretty terrifying.
It was, and I'd like to say I have a fear of heights. I don't like heights. I genuinely I went to the Danish opera house or whatever it was in Copenhagen, and like there's one bit when you can walk around it because it was one of these special days, like culture days, and I went to the top of it, and just thought it was inside, went across this walkway and looked down and been like, oh my god, my knees are I genuinely my knees started shaking, and that was, honestly, it'll be about half the distance of how high we went. And it was just terrifying. But it's one of those, and somebody was like, oh, after 10 minutes, it gets better and you're fine. No, I was terrified from the moment it got above like 8 feet to, actually, I lost all my fear when it started going down. And I was waving to the cars, and they were waving back. And there was people filming it. There was one guy driving while holding his camera, filming it as he was driving past. And this is a motorway.
More dangerous than you being on the top of a crane.
This is a motorway with like 3 or 4 lanes each way, and he's there like driving along, filming it. There were lots of like, I could hear quite a lot of beeping of like honking of car horns, and I was like, I wonder if there are people just like being distracted by this giant thing that's right next to. Well, it's not right next to them because it was above them. But yeah, it was so cool. And City Skylines 2 is gonna be the city building game that you want to play. City building. It's not really management, is it? Well, maybe it is a bit, but yeah, city building game. And yeah, you should definitely play that. That is out in October.
I'm quite jealous of the whole experience, to be honest.
Would you have done it?
Absolutely, I would have done it.
Would you have been terrified? Maybe you're not scared of heights.
I don't think I'm as scared of heights as you are. And the thing you've got to remember is that it's gone through safety regulations. So you're perfectly safe. So you've just got to trust in that.
It just felt a bit weird because it was like a crane in a car park. So it felt random. A little bit carny.
Yeah.
A bit like carnival type thing. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, they're not going to kill these. Like, because I was with streamers that I was with like, well, actually, he wasn't on mine. He was on the day before, but I was with people that have like millions of subscribers. I didn't know them, but I was chatting to them and being friendly, and I'm like, yeah, you probably have 5 million subscribers, some of these people. So I'm like, yeah, they're not going to kill all of them.
No, exactly. So you just got to trust that the straps will hold and just enjoy playing the game.
And I just got a soaked arm and a watch. Yeah, would I do it again? If I'd have known what it was going to be like, I would have done, but I think I would have had I wouldn't have had a big drink because then I might have needed a pee. Although people were like, oh, you're going to shit yourself. I'm like, no, my arse is so tight right now. There is nothing coming out of that. Like, I can't even fart. I don't think I even farted going up there.
I mean,
you know me, I fart quite regularly. Over an hour there, nothing came out.
Wow.
So, yeah. Anyway, what a lovely image. So that's pretty much all our gaming stuff. What did you think of Cologne?
I enjoyed Cologne. That was my 4th time to Germany, but the other 3 were all to Hamburg. And I've also only ever been to Germany on work trips. Not that I travel all the time.
Yeah.
But it's just, from previous jobs, I just happened to have been to Hamburg. So I liked Cologne. It was...
I started off a bit weird, didn't it, for us, I think?
I think I prefer Hamburg. Just Hamburg feels a bit cooler. I feel like Cologne was really cool, but was quite chilled, and I feel like most people go there or seem to go there because there's a massive convention center.
It felt like a businessy version of Zaragoza, where it's quite kind of small, but people, it's quite traditional maybe in certain parts of it, maybe not the actual convention center area, but when we kind of walked out into the different areas and the different neighborhoods, it felt very like neighborhood, local.
I mean, it's a small. Especially by London standards, it's a small city, so it feels like a nice community. There's a really nice area along the river with loads of nice restaurants, which was a really nice.
We went on like
we had
a 10K
massive
walk. Yeah.
which was nice. We went to Haxon House and had a pork knuckle.
Oh my god, the most meat I've ever eaten. I couldn't even eat breakfast. I had to didn't eat anything until lunch the following day.
It was literally like this big. I mean, you can't see it if you're only listening, but
size of a heart.
Yeah, this huge joint of pork with then sausage and
like
something
fried
else.
spam or something like that.
I don't know exactly what it was, but it was some
Spam
sort of other
fritter.
meat thing. Loads of the best sauerkraut I've ever had.
Genuinely, yes.
Fucking love sauerkraut.
Genuinely the best sauerkraut.
That, and I mean, everyone drinks beer. I do not, so I just had wine. But the wine glasses were very generous.
They are very generous with wine. I got to say, they're like, oh, well, they know about beer a lot. So they're like, well, we know a beer measure is a pint. So wine is what, like half a pint?
Yeah.
They just shoved it in. But yeah, my first experience with Cologne was a bit weird because I was on the tram. I was stressed because I missed my connecting train because there's 20 minutes between the Eurostar and the trip to Brussels, and then the trip from Brussels to Cologne. And it's 20 minutes, and you had made it, and you and your boss had made that trip.
I mean,
because I booked it through the train line. They you can't be like, no, I need to take the train. Oh, I think they can actually, but it said it was like 2.5 hours later because it didn't want to use the Thales train for some reason because they've got multiple train companies, a bit like in the UK. But anyway, I missed it, and it's been annoying because I was kind of stressed about missing it because I'm like, it's only 20 minutes, but I was a bit stressed, but also like we'd been following the time and everything was fine. Literally 5 minutes outside of Brussels, they were like, oh, there's a signaling problem, so we're going to be like 13 to 15 minutes late, which we were. And then I ran, and there's a few of us running, because it's quite a common connection, I think, because it goes off to Frankfurt. We were running. There were literally, as I got off there were loads of people I had to like move around, which took me forever to get through. And they were all holding like Saga posters.
So for the old people.
I literally had to kind of, slalom around all the Saga pensioners on holiday. And then, I didn't make it, unfortunately. However, I spent an extra hour then in Brussels Station and got the best Belgian waffle with chocolate and I think it was just chocolate, wasn't it? I think I sent you a picture. Was it cream?
You sent me a picture. I think it was just chocolate.
It was just chocolate, but you could also have it with cream or with strawberries. It was brilliant, which unfortunately when we came back, we didn't have the opportunity because our train was 45 minutes late.
You promised me that we were going to have a waffle in the station because on the way back, the changeover at Brussels from the regular train to the Eurostar was like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Now, you've got to get through security at the Eurostar, but we had loads of time to spare. So we're like, great, we're going to have a Belgian waffle. You've bigged this up. I'm very excited about this waffle. And then on the way back, we had to go from a different Cologne station.
Yeah.
So we had to get a little connection. Then we were at a station in the middle of
bloody nowhere. It felt like, it had like, 4 platforms.
It was a much smaller station.
Yeah.
And loads of people are waiting there. And we're like, okay, well, when's the train to Brussels? And it was like at least 45 minutes late.
Mm-hmm.
Other trains went by and we nearly got on one that was actually going the other way.
Yeah, we were really close.
Because one platform does 2 directions and it had Brussels on it, but that's because it was coming from Brussels, not going to Brussels.
I wonder how many people got like literally screwed on that one.
Yeah,
genuinely.
Exactly.
Like,
and anyway, we ended up getting the right train, but it was super late and it was crawling. And we were like, we've got
and
this
it's crowded.
It was super crowded.
Standing room only on a 2-hour train. What?
Yeah, not the one.
No. At least it wasn't like £500 like it would be in the UK.
Yeah, exactly. It was about 40 quid, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, we get up at Brussels and we're running through the station. And luckily they had opened an air. Well, I don't know if they had opened it especially.
Yeah, no, they had. It was specially opened up a bit.
So we could just go straight through security. And the nice people, they were literally like, don't worry, you got plenty of time. And I'm like, let me through.
Yeah, I've never seen you be so stressed in here. Running.
I was literally shaking when we got to the Eurostar
You were
platform.
the first person through the security and you're still like, you were literally the first person there.
We got there and the guy was like, if you've got such and such a ticket here, go ahead. And I was like, I've got Eurostar. He was like, you can go there. I was like, slam, down, go, passport, through the control. Yep, here's my passport, go. Like, got to the platform. So we got to the platform about 15 minutes before the train even arrived. Yeah. But I was just on the platform shaking. Like,
yeah, genuinely. You had to go to the food
I got
carriage
food
as quickly
immediately.
as possible. But yeah, so unfortunately we didn't have Belgian waffles, but that just means we need to go back to Brussels. But maybe I was thinking like if we go to Gamescom again next year, if we're both there, we should have like an extra night in Brussels. Because I'd quite like to see Brussels.
I enjoyed having the 2 extra days in Cologne. We got to see Cologne. eat lovely food. We got to meet Matt, which was really nice.
Yeah.
So we had a lovely couple of days. But now that I've done that,
Yeah.
I'm slightly less fussed to stay longer because we didn't want to do Gamescom. But I think if we got the train on the Friday night, but then stayed over in Brussels into
Till
Saturday
Sunday
or
or-
something.
yeah.
So then if there's a problem with the stopover, we've got longer. And B, I've got an entire day to eat my body's weight in Belgian waffles.
Yeah, exactly. And like I say, one of the as I was saying before, like the reason why I had a kind of a weird start to the experience was I was a bit late, so I was really hot and sweaty, and I'd finally got on the train, and I needed to come to the convention center to get the room key from you. So I got on a tram, and my bag strap was slightly touching somebody. It's on quite a crowded train, but my bag strap was slightly touching a person that was standing right at the door because I think it was going off next. And he's just started moaning at me that my back strap was touching him. And I'm like, have you been on public transport before in your life? Like a bag strap touching against you on a crowded train.
Maybe it was tickling his arm.
Maybe he was enjoying it a bit too much. And he's like, no, I can't. And then got the thing, went off to the hotel, and I was standing at some traffic lights crossing this like multi-lane traffic thing. And on the bit of the grass verge right in the middle, there was a woman sitting down reading a book. I was like, that's normal. And then as I was walking literally just around the corner to the hotel, some people had their head out of a car screaming, shouting at me at something in German. I was like, what is this place? This place, everyone seems to be really highly strung. But yeah, anyway, we had a great time in the end, actually, because after Gamescom, yeah, we went and enjoyed ourselves. Do you tell them about the bar?
Oh, well, there's a square in Cologne.
I was thinking about the bar that we went to on the Saturday night.
Oh, that one. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, there's a couple of bars. So, there's a square in Cologne that basically everyone goes to after Gamescom. And there's an Irish bar, and loads of other ones. So everyone tends to go to the Irish bar, which inside was pretty grim, to be honest. But at least you can get a drink and stand outside. And it's typical that the Brits of the games industry go to an Irish bar, but whatever. And then the other side of that, there's a load of other bars, but there's one called Joe's that has these terrifying puppets in, and there's like a public phone, and you pick up the phone and put your put a
euro
coin in, and then type in the number of the puppets, and then they perform for you, and they literally like come up to like come alive, and then perform.
We had bare necessities and sex bomb.
Yeah, and they sort of like wink and like twitch as they're going, and
their
like,
eyebrows move.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is absolutely terrifying.
Should definitely
so that was nice.
Yeah. But then we decided to discover the gay area. We are an LGBT podcast after all, so we did test it out just to see what the scene was like.
We tested it out. So we walked down the road to see what bars there were and decide which one to go in. So obviously we went into Kinks, which was men only.
Yeah, it was Kinks. It was like, we're in Germany.
Exactly.
The stereotype of,
I mean, I don't think it was that weird a bar, but they just happened to call it Kinks.
Yeah.
They had, some people in leather, but also people in whatever else they wanted to wear, which was great.
Football tops.
A couple of guys in pup masks.
Yeah.
We had a nice drink there.
Yeah. Is it? I don't get it. Is a pup mask for like? Is it like anonymity?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. Well, interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were there. We just had a drink outside. That's as daring as we got. I think there was like a back room. I don't know if it was the toilets or if it was like a whole other part of the bar, but I didn't go investigating.
We didn't.
No.
Well, we'd also eaten a lot of pizza just beforehand, so we were quite full.
We were like, let's go get something light. And we ended up getting the world's biggest pizzas.
I didn't know it would be that big.
And double desserts.
Fine.
Yeah.
That's totally acceptable. There were mini desserts.
There were two, well, they weren't that many, to be honest. But yeah, we had new thing that, my God, you should definitely try this. This is something I tried out, never had it before. I recommend it to everybody. Coffee at the end of a meal. What a great idea.
I mean, it's hardly groundbreaking, man.
It's
quite normal.
This is something I've never really done, and I had it, and I was like, you know what, that just gave me energy, and I was completely ready to, I could have had another drink at Kinks. Could have had another, well, actually, probably would have been a bad idea. But like, yeah, it was quite nice, and it was just like, it was one little street. Maybe there's a big club somewhere else, but all these bars tend to be on one street. They had a coat check. Or coat check-in on the street. Like that was one of the bar type thing. It was like facing the street was your coat check. So you can go and, check in your coat or whatever, but you could then just go to any of the bars and you're not having to go and check in and out.
Everyone tends to drink outside anyway, so you
Yeah.
can kind of go to any bar and just drink outside, and which is a nice vibe, to be honest. I enjoy it.
That's a great idea, though. If they are that close together, all the bars, just having a place where you leave your coats.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that was Cologne, and we finally made it home, and we're
both
tired.
knackered today. Today is a bank holiday in the UK.
Yeah, and you got your stream starting soon as well.
I need to do that.
All right.
Also, top tip if you go to Gamescom is take an empty bag for all of the other bags that you get.
We are going to be putting, in fact, it might be out already. We're going to have a little YouTube video showing all the merch that you've received, all the freebies.
Yeah, we got a lot. Because you go to your preview and they're like, thanks for coming. Have a black tote bag filled with stuff.
Yeah.
Which is cool. We get loads of things from it, but it was a bit awkward to bring back on the train.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think we'll end it there. I know we've got people who've been playing stuff, but I think we'll save those for next time because it's already 2.5 hours, this podcast.
Sure.
So if you did tell us what you've been playing, we'll just do a double one next time. Yeah.
Sure.
Because I think this is way too long.
Yes.
Okay. What do you have? Any final thoughts?
Gamescom was great. Cologne was good fun. The whole thing was incredibly tiring, but very worthwhile. So it was a good week.
Couldn't say it better myself. But like I say, if you are going or you're wanting to go, make sure you get an exhibitor press or creator pass because the public pass is just
within about 5 minutes of being there. I'd walked through at least 3 people's farts.
Yeah, and I probably caught COVID about 17 times.
Don't say that.
Maybe that was the cough, the dry mouth. No, hopefully not. All right, well, thanks very much for listening to this bumper special of the Gamescom special of Swapping Joysticks. I've been Ben Ostwick, otherwise known as Biggest Bennis. You can find me at twitch.tv/BiggestBennis and everywhere else, Biggest Bennis or Biggest Bennis1. Where can we find you, Ed?
You can find me at ed_nights on all the socials, Twitch and X, whatever you want to call it, and everything else.
We don't want to call it that. And yeah, if you go to swappingjoysticks.com, you can see you can find links to all of our podcasts on various podcast platforms and our YouTube channel as well. And the quick looks on the YouTube channel as well. And I'll be doing one of Sea of Stars. Well, it might be out already, to be honest, by the time that we've been able to publish this with the embargoes. All right. Do you want to say goodbye? Oh, we don't do the swapping thing anymore. Do we just go bye? Bye.